Hello from the Streaming Center here at 11Alive. I'm Cheryl Preheim. Happy Friday, everybody. It has been a big week and today a big day for a lot of students. We've got our first wave of students going back to school. So if you are a parent, loved one, teacher, kid going back to school, hope it is a good entry back into the building for the start of another school year. And we have a pretty beautiful day to do it. Let's kick things off on this Friday with meteorologist Julie Martin to talk more about that forecast. I just don't feel a lot of humidity in the air, which is amazing.
Yeah, no, it's a nice dry day today, and so this will be unfortunately the last of it for a bit. We've got some rain coming in over the weekend and then more humidity, but yeah, really nice day for back to school today. Taking you outside right now, we're at 85 over downtown Atlanta. The dew point down in the 60s, so that's why it feels so comfortable out there. We're still dealing with a little smoke, though, from those wildfires up in Canada. So you'll see the smoke forecast here kind of keeping it with us in the low to moderate range through at least Saturday, and then it looks like we will clear out, and we're going to have a pattern change as well coming in. Air quality overall is fine. It's good to moderate, so we shouldn't have to worry too much about that. All right, for your Friday, low 90s, lower humidity. Still need to stay cool out there. As I mentioned, 80 to 85 right now. We've got 91 in Eatonton, where it's always a little warmer. Feels like temperatures are also comfortable, though. Yeah, we haven't seen these for a while, the 80s instead of the 90s and triple digits. So enjoy this Friday. Great way to wrap up the week. All right, our next 12 hours, we'll see a mix of sun and clouds, dropping back into the 70s tonight. High temps likely topping out in the low 90s, right around 91 downtown, 92 in Duluth, 80s in the North Georgia mountains. So if you're heading out to the Braves game at Truist this evening, first pitch at 7:15. Great night for some baseball, 88 degrees, 86 by 8, and then staying in the 80s throughout the duration of the game. We have a front that's off to our south here, and that's been helping to keep us kind of quiet over the last couple of days. However, that is going to shift, and we are going to start to get more tropical moisture coming up from the south. And so by Saturday afternoon, looking at rounds of storms coming through the area. And then again on Sunday, perhaps this particular model showing more of that, maybe a lot of this action off to our south. Now, this model tends to form more of a strong line of storms coming through the area Saturday afternoon and then again on Sunday. So we'll see how that plays out. Right now, we don't have a severe weather threat in our immediate area. Rome, out in Floyd County, you are under a low level 1 out of 5 for the heavy downpours damaging winds. 60% though of rain over the weekend and thunderstorms, and then we have some lower chances as we start off the week, but we will be a bit unsettled and be dodging those showers and storms, especially in the afternoon hours over the weekend. Here is the forecast then. As we look to next week, we will keep some rain chances around each day. Temperatures eventually by midweek start to creep back up into the 90s.
All right. So I'm thinking about some inside things to add to the list for the weekend. Huh?
Yeah, maybe some indoor projects.
Yeah, all right. Julie, thanks so much.
Sure.
Hey, listen, we have a great interview coming up and a fantastic organization meeting important needs in our community. It's called Hungry AF, and we have co-founders Kevin Edwards and Anthony Harris in studio. They're going to make their way in front of the mics, and we'll be back in just a minute with an important conversation. Don't go anywhere. On this Friday, it's back to school for some of those first districts that are going back. Barrow County, one of them. But now we're in this season of more and more schools heading back to school. And it's a challenging time for a lot of families. And it just maybe puts a spotlight on challenges a lot of people are facing all year round as we all grapple with affordability being such a challenge in our lives. One local restaurant group is working to help close the gap through its community outreach initiative. It is called Community AF. Joining us, co-founders Kevin Edwards and Anthony Harris. So glad you're both in studio. Happy Friday and welcome in.
Thank you.
Happy Friday.
And thank you for making a difference in our community. First, let's just kick it off with talk about the initiative and what your objective is.
So, first of all, we want to thank Atlanta for the support of Hungry AF and everything that they've made possible through their support. And we like giving back to the community. So we created an arm of Hungry AF called Community AF. And right now, Community AF has been doing a lot of back-to-school drive. We have one this evening in College Park. We did one last week. We did one with the city of East Point, Councilman Sean Atkins. So we're actively involved in giving back to the community that supports us.
That's great, Kevin. Anthony, what's been the response when you are out at those drives? What are you seeing on the ground?
It's always been a good response. The community comes out. We deliver some of our great food just to support the community and give back to the school system.
Talk about the need that you're seeing. You know, we do so many stories about, families who are working so hard and it's just hard to put, maybe all the things you need together because prices just keep going up. What needs are you seeing out there that made you say, hey, we want to do something extra. We want to do this Community AF to make sure that we can be part of the solution?
What we are seeing out there, a lot of people are struggling just to make ends meet. And what we wanted to do was help bridge the gap. And, I saw a heartbreaking story where a mother was actually stealing from a store to try to provide for her kids to go back to school. And she was adamant at saying, I don't have it. I just want my kids to go back to school just like every other kid. So it really touched and resonated with us because we didn't come from a silver spoon environment ourselves. We came from an environment where our parents had to make ends meet, and we wanted to try to bridge the gap between the community that supports us and the people that need help.
My whole life growing up, we'd have popcorn with apples and peanut butter for dinner at the end of the week. And I'd ask my mom when I was an adult, that was such a cool tradition. She's like, no, we just run out of money by then. And that's what we did for dinner until the next paycheck came in, I was thinking about that mom and that desperate feeling of just wanting your children to have what they need. And then talk about the response when you guys are there and say, hey, we can help you. What are some of the stories you're hearing from the people that you're serving?
It's always a good response. People are always happy. We love to just give back to what they need.
Yeah. How can people get involved?
Well, we try to, do things ourselves because the Atlanta community has been so good to us. We're about to open our 11th location, and that's in 3 years. And it's been incredible with the response that Atlanta owes us nothing, and that's why we're so happy to give back to the community because they've helped us reach our goals.
How can local businesses play a bigger role in our communities? You guys are kind of setting the pace, showing how that can be done. From your perspective, how can more businesses jump in there to help fill gaps?
What we're seeing a lot of businesses get involved in the community now. Business is not like it used to be. A lot of businesses are struggling, and we recognize that. With us, we've been blessed. And we want to pay it forward, So we try to raise the bar so people can get out there and help. But we know a lot of businesses are struggling at this time, and they're just trying to make ends meet themselves. So we want to try to be the front runner because Atlanta's been so good to us, and our business has been thriving so much that we want to give back. We want to be able to touch that little boy or little girl who doesn't have what they need in order just to be happy to go to school.
Yeah. Yeah. If they're not fed, if they're not nurtured and supported in the way they can, how do they learn? You know, how can they go in and maximize the experience, even in what should be a safe and wonderful place for every kid, which would be at school. And I was thinking as you were talking, you know, if everybody does a little bit, the burden doesn't fall on everybody. So if, you know, Atlanta's Mayor Andre Dickens always talks about the group project
Yes.
of the city. And
Yes.
this is another way the city can be part of a group project. What has it meant to you personally to be involved in the initiative?
It means a lot to me. You know, I come from a low income family early on, so it just means a lot to see the smile on kids' faces, to get school supplies they probably can't afford, school supplies they actually need to learn, to elevate. So it's really touching to me.
And when you take care of the kids, you're supporting the parents and also the teachers, who often are the ones that have to close the gap, right? Providing different things at school as well. What is your hope for where you all will go in the future?
Our hope is to be, you know, one of the biggest restaurant groups in the country. We're on our way, one step at a time. But I want to touch back, you know, we really wanted to see the self-esteem of the kids that is just so strong in them that they are able to look at themselves and say, I can be an entrepreneur. I can own my own restaurant. I can have my own restaurant group, you know, and that's why we wanted to jump in and help, because a lot of kids, they lack the self-esteem, and they lack the self-esteem because they don't have the proper tools to be able to be successful in school. And we want to be able to help them be successful in school and give them the self-esteem they need. You know, I never met a millionaire when I was growing up. There's no millionaires in my family or anything like that. But I knew it was always something in it, and it was always someone there to help me realize what being successful was.
I love that. It's like casting a vision, supporting them now and casting a vision about the future. And you guys are great examples. Yeah. Thank you so much. Let's stay in touch. I'd love to hear more about how it grows, the initiatives in the future. And thanks so much for stepping up and filling a need for so many families, especially now as we are in back to school. It's so good to meet you both.
Thank you.
Kevin, Anthony, thanks so much.
Right.
We're going to take a quick break here on the stream. Don't go anywhere. If you've been hearing a lot about Formula One cars in Atlanta tomorrow, this is for you. We're going to talk more about it with Doug Turnbull. And by the way, some big time legends going to be there as well, including Killer Mike. Much more on the other side of the break. Welcome back to the 11 Live stream. You're looking live right now from the 11 Live Sky Tracker over the Red Bull show run, taking over Atlanta streets. There's the tent, making it official. Oh, don't worry. We'll get the signal back. It's like shake a wire. There we go. It's going to be great. So tents there. You see all the infrastructure in place for what is going to be a massive weekend, and I think a very popular event. F1 Formula Racing, Red Bull coming to town. This is going to be in the Somerville neighborhood, and the setup's been pretty cool, and it's been fun because, you know, Doug Turnbull and Reggie Chapman, a couple of our friends here at 11 Alive, have seen some of these cars around town. Look at that. They're getting all the merch ready. There's the merch tent. They're folding up the t-shirts and the sweatshirts. This is going to be big. Doug Turnbull's with me here in studio as we keep looking at that Sky Tracker a little bit. Kind of pumps me up to see it's really happening. Tell us everything you know about this event, Doug, because you're a racing guy. You love this stuff.
Look, we are still in the good hangover from World Cup,
yes,
a
we are.
world-class event that's been here. And I think this one kind of snuck up, right? I mean, I'd seen a little social media on this, and then all of a sudden, bam, it's here. And so the Summerhill neighborhood is near. Now, come on, vintage Atlantans, near the old Turner Field,
Yes.
Center Park Stadium, GSU Stadium.
Yep.
And Hank Aaron Drive is going to basically be transformed into a drag strip or mini racetrack from Fulton Street down to the stadium. So right next to the downtown connector, it's going to be fully shut. And from 5 to 7 p.m. Saturday, they're going to run actual Formula One cars, not the current ones, all right, but ones that resemble that. You see some footage from when we were there. I think they had the kickoff event on Wednesday, and so Formula One, Red Bull is this big sponsor, but Ford has just entered Formula One this year, and so Ford Racing, partnered with Red Bull, is going to have different Ford racing vehicles, some of them off-road, some of them in sports cars, and then of course the F1 car is going to be there as well, and they're going to be out on the street, and they're shutting it down fully, and they've even put the jersey barriers, the safety barriers up to keep the crowd safe, and they're going to run it maybe not full speed, but at high speed and do donuts and drifting and all that kind of stuff, and it's totally free for fans. Now, I just want to be clear, nothing in F1 is ever free, okay? All right, F1's like FIFA level on costs, all right? It's nothing, and I've never been to anything F1 because it doesn't come close to Atlanta. They go to Miami and Vegas and Austin, Texas, so this is going to be free. 4 to 7 p.m. tomorrow is the window where activity is.
Okay.
And then at 5 p.m. is when they do like the parade of the cars and the different things, and there's going to be all sorts of merch just like you saw out there.
Yeah.
But today, little teaser, little 5 points off of Moreland Avenue, at a place I believe is called Wish ATL.
Okay.
They're going to have a big block party at a 4 to 9 p.m. celebration for that. So just a few hours. So
that's cool, and perfect weather for that. That's going to be incredible.
Yes, for sure. And hopefully the rain and stuff that's forecast this weekend will stay out of that window tomorrow.
Yeah.
But it already looks kind of like a F1 street course down there, even though the road was open on Hank Aaron Drive. They have the banners up that says Red Bull, it gives you wings, and it looks like the barriers that you would see on a Formula One course when they race in the streets, like in Monaco, where they have like the double barriers, and then I'm presuming the fans will be able to stand right there.
Yeah, that Summerhill neighborhood, that's going to be so neat. I'm just picturing some of those amazing cars and trucks that you were just showing us, like under the Olympic rings and right by the cauldron.
Yes.
And just right down there in such a wonderful historic part of our city.
Exactly, and a place that time of the weekend shouldn't be too busy. Right? They're not shutting down Peachtree in Midtown. All right, it's there's a little more room to move over there, and with the big parking lots and things that used to belong to the old Turner Field, or I guess technically still belong to Georgia State, there'll be a lot of places for people to gather. So when I was reading over the article about it from the Chamber of Commerce Discover Atlanta site, basically, fans, it's free. Just don't try to bring a lot of stuff, try to go there just like the F1 cars, low, light, lean, all right, and it'll be free.
Fast.
And you get there fast, and you can take MARTA to the Georgia State station, and it's just, about a block or two to walk right down there.
And worth noting, there's not really a lot said about how many people, but I was reading up on it a little bit, and according to the city permits, it would be like we're talking about somewhere in the ballpark of 50,000 people potentially. We'll see, but not just the cars being the draw and Red Bull, but there's some big names that are going to be there too, some legends from the ATL.
Listen, there in this entire station, there's probably not a bigger fan of Killer Mike than I am, all right?
Okay.
I love Michael Render from the West Side, all right? He is great. I was listening to him on the way back to the station from my stuff I was doing in the field today. So Killer Mike's going to be there. And, I actually, is he performing or is he just going to come and strut? I don't know. But anything Killer Mike does, whether he's rapping or not, is a performance. Like, he's real, but you can't take your eyes or ears off of him. So he was prominent in the World Cup, and big surprise. He's going to be prominent here with this F1 Red Bull. They call it Show Run Atlanta. And by the way, this thing, they're taking it around the country. They were just July 25th in Dearborn, Michigan. No surprise, the home of Ford.
Sure.
Okay, so this is big. And if you're wondering why Ford, F1, I thought Ford just entered F1 this year. All right, as a big backer of Red Bull, and Ford and Cadillac, General Motors entered F1 at the same time. So obviously F1's exploding popularity has drawn the American market.
Well, is it the Netflix series,
Drive to Survive.
Yeah,
Yep.
Drive to Survive. A lot of people being introduced to this reminds me a little bit of the people being introduced to FIFA Big Summer. And you're going to be there tomorrow, right?
I'm going to be. I'm not going to be on duty tomorrow. All right,
For
but
fun.
if we run into each other, please say hello. I'll try to angle and see if I can get behind a car. I don't think they're going to let me drive tomorrow. But it does say F1 drivers are going to be there. Red Bull is famous for having a lot of people in its endorser list.
Okay.
And the
Sure, Lindsey
team Red Bull.
Vonn.
Exactly.
yeah.
In fact, there are a couple of NASCAR drivers, Shane Van Gisbergen and Connor Zilic, who are sponsored by Red Bull, but they drive for Chevrolet. They won't be there. Okay, so this is a Ford thing. But I don't expect to see, even though F1 is in its summer break right now, I don't expect to see Max Verstappen and Isaac Hadjar and the popular F1 Red Bull drivers there.
Hamilton.
But you never know.
Yeah.
Never know.
Okay.
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton's not going to roll up in
Yeah.
his Ferrari gear either.
But the cars are cool, and the event is neat, and it's going to be right here in the city. And I'm glad you're going to be there, and we'll have it covered for you here on 11Alive. And listen, there's a lot. You're a busy man because you're going to MC the Hall of Fame.
Yes. So in Dawsonville. So going to stock cars now, which is more my speed. The Georgia Racing Hall of Fame, which is this treasure in downtown Dawsonville, a little bit west of Georgia 400. They're having their induction ceremony tomorrow, which the public can attend. It's usually about $30 or so to go to it. And they're inducting 5 drivers or people that were significant in Georgia racing history, including former AJC racing reporter Rick Minter, by the way, someone I've known a long time. And I've gotten to MC that every year since my mentor, Captain Herb Emery, passed away in 2014. And I got to soon do that after him, and he used to do that ceremony. So it's sentimental for me. And for those that don't know about Georgia racing, this is, Bill Elliott is a big centerpiece in that Hall of Fame, a NASCAR Hall of Famer. His wife, Cindy, is the head of the Georgia Racing Hall of Fame. And, of course, Chase Elliott's NASCAR's most popular driver and a champion as well. So that's a big centerpiece in that Hall of Fame, and we'll have a busy day tomorrow.
All right, from the Hall of Fame to F1. And you're also helping us through a busy time in the city, which is a big transition time for back to school. And there are actually a lot of things people need to know about. I always think about it, I've got 4 kids, and especially the littler ones, drivers out there, it's really important this time of year to be aware of it's busier. There's more kids, there's buses. What's top of mind for you that you want to just remind everybody?
And it really is top of mind. So here I was just talking about cars that will be legally allowed to drift and cut donuts in the middle of downtown Atlanta. And now we switch to the 25-mile-an-hour school zone.
Yes.
But hey, I cover slow cars and fast cars for a living. It's what I do. So I just went to the AAA Schools Open Drive Safely event. It's literally a campaign that they've had for some 80 years or 80-plus years, all right? And they just held it at the Cobb County Safety Village. I don't know if you've ever been to the Cobb County Safety
No,
Village.
I'd love to visit.
It's like a simulated village or town that they do all these different simulated exercises at. But it was really just a cadre of AAA, state, and then Cobb County officials reminding people these things. So here's what, of course, the school zone being 25 miles per hour isn't just being overly cautious. And you have a look here from some school buses being loaded right now. If a child is hit at 25 miles an hour versus 45, they are twice as likely to survive.
Wow.
That's why 25 is the number. So, of course, we're slowing down. Distraction is a top, we need to keep the phones put away, eyes on the road, hands on the wheel, just like the Doors used to sing, right? Okay. But here's another one too. If you have, and this is a new one on me, so I'd love to know what you think about this as a parent of teenagers. If you have a teen driver who maybe has their driver's license for the first time with school back in, maybe take them on a dry run through the school zones. Just remember, here's what 25 miles per hour feels like without holding your phone. Because it'll be maybe their first time driving to high school and having to navigate an elementary or middle school school zone, right?
It's such a good point because, all the clusters that the 3 schools are together, elementary, middle and high school right there. And just, and sometimes when things are so busy for like my new drivers, it's just a little more anxiety. And sometimes it's just the nervousness that makes you make that move that's different. So that's a really good idea.
Yeah,
Just
and it wasn't mine. It wasn't original.
Well, thanks for passing it
Yes.
along. But just having the conversation and then also just the dry run. I saw you out there with the kindergartners who got to practice
my
on the
gosh.
school bus, which was so cute. But really a different kind of dry run maybe for those newer drivers.
I think whether you're, and by the way, you, the adult driver too, okay,
Yeah.
because it might take you 5 or 10 more minutes to get out of your neighborhood on Monday morning. You just need to remember that. And of course, the school bus stop laws, you can never say it enough. When when that stop sign is out, it means everybody in both directions stops so that school bus can unload or load unless there's a physical barrier like grass or a wall in the road. If it's just a painted line on the road, you need to stop too if you're coming the other way. So you got to remember that. And lastly, they had a reminder about e-bike safety. They just kind of threw this in. So AAA has a new, it's called E-Ride Ready program, I believe.
Okay.
And that's a whole different splinter, if you will, but more kids are going to be riding these e-bikes and e-scooters and going faster. They require different helmets for how fast you're going. You need to have your helmet properly fitted. All right. And parents should remember that there are different classes of e-bikes. And if you have an 8-year-old who just seems really skilled, they don't need to be on the higher class of e-bike because they could go really fast with very little effort. And you're supposed to mind all pedestrian and traffic laws too, instead of just blowing through an intersection. So the Cobb County has a Safe Kids program where they could give free helmets to kids that can't afford them. So there's in Cobb County a way to be covered with that.
That's good. All such really good information, Doug. Thanks for helping us through it all.
For sure. There'll be a test later. I know that was a lot. We just did whiplash on that, but real. Rachel Cox Rosen and I will be all over your ride on Monday morning,
Okay.
starting at 4:30.
Yes.
And I will be stationed at DeKalb County School Bus Dispatch Center because they taught me like how they keep these buses straight and how they take calls and an app you can use to track your bus too. So that'll be 4:30 Monday morning here on 11 Alive.
Oh, wouldn't miss it. And thank you to all the bus drivers out there. I've gotten to meet a couple over the
Yes.
years through stories and special people taking care of those kiddos to and from every day. So thank you to the bus drivers and keep an eye on this guy this weekend. Watch his socials because he's going to be busy and it's going to be fun to see. We'll bring it all to you here on 11 Live. Doug, always fun to have you. Thanks so much.
You're great, Cheryl.
All
Thanks
right.
to you and Jordan for having me.
Okay, see you in just a bit. Hey, we have a packed show on this Friday. We have so much coming up, including the superintendent from Atlanta Public Schools. A lot more coming your way here on the 11 Live stream. Don't go anywhere. We're going to take a quick break. We'll see you in 2 minutes. if you have a chance today at some point, maybe just get outside and enjoy the fact that it's not quite so soupy outside, not so humid, because it may not last too long. Want to get a check of your weather now with meteorologist Julie Martin on a Friday. This is a beautiful kind of breath of fresh air before another round of, oh yeah, we live in Georgia.
Exactly.
Comes down.
August comes knocking at the door.
It's
Yes.
still, yeah.
Yeah. So, less humidity today overall. Should be a really pretty afternoon. If you can get out of work a little early, go out and play hooky a little bit, it should be a nice day. Get out on the golf course. 84 right now. That humidity is down to only 51%. We're still dealing with some smoke, though, from the Canadian wildfires. That's going to be with us through about Saturday, and then it'll start to pull away. So you may notice that haze out there and the really pretty sunsets and sunrises as well. We've seen some great pictures of just bright orange and red sunsets and sunrises. Right now, the air quality is still good to moderate, so not really any health concerns with this smoke. Lower humidity today, and then we're needing to stay cool because we're still going to be in the 90s, but not feeling uncomfortable as we have been. Feels like temperatures in general are in the low 80s for most of us, low to mid 80s. Over the next 12 hours, a mix of sun and clouds. Temperatures will fall back into the 80s this evening and eventually into the 70s. So looks like we'll top out right about average at 91 downtown. Most of us will be around 90 degrees. If you're heading out to the ballpark tonight, it should be a great night for some baseball. 88 at first pitch, and then we'll drop back into the 80s throughout the evening. Quiet right now on the satellite and radar, and we will stay quiet today. Not any concerns for rain coming our way, but that changes once we do get into Saturday. So this is the setup. We've got this front that's going to be pushed up to the north of us, and another front coming in. That's going to open the door for this humid tropical air to filter in from the south. So with that, we are expecting rounds of rain on Saturday. There's a low-level risk of severe weather in northwest Georgia. 60% chance over the weekend, and then a little bit lower as we start off next week. But we will have to dodge some of those showers and storms throughout the weekend. Looks like the afternoon hours, especially on Saturday, we've got at least maybe a decent line of storms coming through. So just be weather aware and have your rain gear handy. As we head into next week, it does look like we'll overall have lower chances, but the humidity and the temperatures, they start to creep back up by midweek.
Yeah, that's always one of those kind of things in the back to school season, is that, there are some of those days where you kind of go, ooh, recess is going to be hot, and I really hope some of the older buildings and the schools, their ACs.
Yeah,
okay,
the school buses too.
The school buses, it's a real thing here in Georgia, especially in those afternoon temperatures.
Yeah, it really is. You have to be careful. Make sure your kids are staying hydrated. Fill up those water bottles and make sure they're careful. Yeah.
A couple more hot weeks ahead.
It's hard to go back to school shopping, though, when it's this hot. Don't you think?
Agreed, because if you do, you'll find more sweaters than anything.
Yeah,
it's a funny time.
and they're still wearing shorts. So
Totally. Julie, thanks so much.
Sure.
Really appreciate it. As we've been talking about back to school, there is one district we're thinking about in particular today, and that is the Barrow County school system, which includes, of course, Appalachia High School. I mean, what a week for that community. In 1 week, in the course of 3 days, in fact, 2 sentencings for the Appalachia High School shooting tragedy. First, against the shooter, Colt Gray, who pled guilty to 55 charges. A judge sentenced him this week to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Colt Gray, now 16, 14 at the time of that shooting. Then yesterday, the sentencing for his father, Colin Gray, 55 years old. The judge saying his negligence contributed to the shooting, and he was sentenced to 15 years in prison. The judge, at the very end of the sentencing, acknowledged the community, saying that his heart breaks for the community. And while that was the end of the court procedures in this story, this is a story that never ends for those directly impacted, and the judge talked about that, and the judge mentioned, especially for those students at Appalachia High School and administrators and teachers going back to school today, day one there for those students. So the timing, pretty significant. Stefanich Haynock spent the morning at Appalachia High School talking to that community about this first day back.
So school leaders say that they have been focusing on safety over the summer, including testing out intruder drills and their emergency systems. And we know the first day of classes comes the same week that Colt Gray and his father both learned their sentencing in court this week. Yesterday, a Barrow County judge sentenced Colin Gray to 15 years in prison. The judge said while he did not pull the trigger, he failed to respond to repeated warning signs about his son's behavior and also left him with access to a rifle, the rifle used in the attack. And an Appalachia alumni, also a sister to one of the students that was inside during that shooting but survived. She tells us she believes Colin Gray deserved more prison time. She also says he failed as a father.
Today, they are going through something that they only can understand. We still have 2 years of students that are still there that experienced this tragedy, and you know, the best thing that they can be doing right now is being there for one another, hugging one another, and having a sense of relief that this trial and this very public case is now over.
Prosecutors say the conviction sends a message that parents can be held criminally responsible when they ignore clear warning signs. Now, earlier this week, 16-year-old Colt Gray was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole after pleading guilty to killing students Mason Shermahorn and Christian Angula, along with teachers Christina Irmi and Richard Aspinwall. And this is also the first day back since the district and the sheriff's office agreed to increase the number of school resource officers from 12 to now 25. I'm Stephanie Chanock, 11 Alive News.
Seth, thanks so much. And thinking about everybody there in that community as they're just transitioning, you know, I thought it was really powerful when the judge was talking with such understanding and knowledge about the impact far beyond that court case and how this is a day in, day out reality that everyone there faces. And I'm actually glad that they're together today to do that. So thinking about everybody in that community and particularly at the school, hope it's been a good first day back and a lot more students going back on Monday. Boy, another really, really tough story that we're covering this week as we talked about those feels like temperatures over 100 degrees. We had a weather impact alert about the heat this week, and a tragic story about a mom who says as she went for her daycare drop off, she forgot to drop one of her kids off, a 1-year-old little boy dying in a car because of the heat. A story we're following here for you as it develops. Ariana Manise has the latest.
Police say officers found the baby in the parking lot of Northside Hospital Gwinnett, where the mother worked, dead in his car seat. 29-year-old Deja Coleman is now facing charges of second-degree murder and second-degree cruelty to children. Police say the murder charge is based on neglect, not malicious intent. Investigators say Coleman dropped her two older children off at daycare Wednesday morning, then drove to Northside Hospital Gwinnett, arriving around 7 a.m. Police say her 1-year-old son remained in the back seat until a person walking through the employee parking lot found him about 8 hours later. Now, officers broke the window, but say the child had already died. Investigators say they used the vehicle's tag information to identify the owner, then located Coleman inside the hospital. And they say that she was devastated to find out what happened. Investigators say the mother described the morning routine she followed every day before this tragedy when she spoke to investigators.
Her normal routine is to take the older kids into daycare, come back and retrieve the baby out of the car seat. And unfortunately, yesterday morning, she forgot to make that second trip to the car.
Police say about an hour after the child was removed from the vehicle, the temperature inside the car measured 117 degrees, an hour after the baby was taken out. Meanwhile, her 2 other children were picked up by their father, and Coleman was later taken to jail. Reporting from the newsroom, I'm Ariana Manise for 11 Alive.
Ariana, thank you. A happier ending here in the story. We want to bring you about a 2-year-old girl safe. She's back home after police say a man stole the car she was in. So scary. She was just sitting in the car. Someone jumped in to steal it, putting her at risk. Police say the car was left running with a 2-year-old inside at the time it was stolen. We want to show you the moment police arrested the suspect, 21-year-old Salim Martin. Officers said charges are pending. And then we also have the moment police found the car along Howell Mill Road. We've blurred it out for privacy reasons, but you see that little child and you see the mom hunched over crying. I can only imagine the relief, and the officer just rubbing her back, just consoling her. And you see a little stuffed animal on the hood of the car. What a terrifying moment, but then such relief when that mom and her baby are reunited. Again, that's along Howell Mill Road. Again, the child was inside. The little girl reunited with her mom after police found that car. So scary situation, but really thankful for the ending of that story. And again, the person who jumped in that car and stole it is now in police custody. Busy Friday news day here in the 11Alive Streaming Center. Have a lot more for you, including a sit-down coming up a little bit later with the superintendent of Atlanta Public Schools as they are getting ready for back to school too. We'll take a quick break. We'll see you in just a minute. We want to take you now to South Carolina, where the family is speaking after a 17-year-old was charged with murder as an adult in connection to the death of 13-year-old in McCormick County. Let's listen in.
I should at least get some redacted information in the next, hopefully, 14 days or so.
Tyler, are you considering filing civil litigation, and if so, what's the timeline for that?
At this point, it's too early to say. Right now, it's just getting the answers to this information. But I will say this: I think this family deserves full accountability, criminal accountability for the individuals who killed Daryl, who should still be here today. Along with there should be some civil accountability, and more importantly, I think that if this example of happening in the foster care system is more prevalent than what we know right now, because luckily this family was able to get in contact with lawyers who are leading this investigation. Most people don't have these resources. They may not know what they should do. And the same people can fall through the cracks. So hopefully, I want the state to look at this to prevent this from happening from any other children. That would be a great way to honor Daryl's legacy. But we will pursue, any recourse that brings some semblance of a closure of justice, full justice, civil responsibility and accountability along with criminal responsibility.
Two questions, Mr. Bailey, real quick. First thing, can you talk about the connections to Chester County real quick? Daryl from here, his family's from here?
He's from here. His family's from here. His mother's from here. Who's here? All his loved ones, as you see, you got cousins, you got aunts. They're all from Chester County. Chester County DSS was the entity that initiated proceedings, and then he was relocated in McCormick County.
And then is the family willing to speak, somebody from the family, just to really memorialize, Daryl? He is the person at the center of this all that lost his life. Can somebody just talk about who he was as a person and how you all are remembering him?
Yeah, let me, they just buried him yesterday, and I do think it's important for somebody who is able to speak. And let me ask them, because they are grieving, right? They want answers. All this is so fast, too, because he was here a week and some change ago. He was alive. They should have been looking forward to having his first day of school coming up to 8th grade, and now they're sitting in front of 12 cameras to speak about the loved one after burying him yesterday. If somebody is willing to speak, I'll ask one family member to come up. If not, I know Sherry, she's more than able, willing to speak, who's a cousin. Anybody else want to speak? Hey, just say your name.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Sandrina Sanders. I'm better known as Ziri to my family. I am Daryl's close cousin and godmom. Daryl was a loving, joyful, happy person. He was full of life. He loved life. And whenever anyone saw Daryl, he was always smiling and laughing. You would never know of a sad time or a bad time unless he was really going on. Something was going on that he couldn't take. He should still be here. So, in honor of him, justice for Daryl from the family.
Yes.
That's right. Can I ask a follow-up question? I know talking to on Saturday one of Daryl's family friends, the mother of one of his friends, she was saying that it's unfortunate that he couldn't have been placed closer to home, closer to the community that had people in it that he loved. Do you share those same sentiments?
Let me answer that question. As I mentioned earlier, we are not going to speak on why Daryl was not placed with any family. His family was willing and able to step up. The focus, as I said earlier, is on the independent investigation regarding why he was placed in McCormick County with the individual he was placed in with, and what safeguards or red flags that they knew about despite that and still placed him there, all the way in McCormick. So we're not going to answer any family questions at this time. And the family asked for privacy before coming up. I extended the WIS reporter to hear personally about Daryl's life, but we're not going to get into a question and answer session regarding family placement, who could have received them, or why did somebody. Any other questions?
Do you know where Mr. Hamby was when this whole situation?
He was asleep.
All right, I have two more questions for family member. Just talking about, can she spell out her first and last name for me? And then I just had one more question after you spell out your name.
Sandrina, Sandrina, Sanders, Sanders, better known as Zuri, Zuri.
And of course, I understand emotions are still very much raw. You just buried him yesterday.
It
Can you
is.
talk about just your overall reaction once you got the news that he had passed away?
It was unreal. It was unbelievable. She couldn't believe it, didn't believe it when it came to her.
What was the last thing that you said to Daryl?
I love you. You always know I love you. Quote, unquote.
And then any last remarks that you wanted to share just about how the community can remember this sweet young boy that everybody knew in the family?
I thank the community for the thoughts and prayers, for the concerns and reaching out. But I would just more for everyone to just respect the privacy of the family because we're still taking this all in. It's unreal still. It's unbelievable. So.
Anybody else have a question who did not ask a question?
I have a question.
Yes.
For you. Well, two things. I've met with Mr. Henry and talked with him. According to him, he was saying it was in the morning.
Been listening to this press conference. If you're not familiar with this case, I want to give you a little bit of the backstory here. This 14-year-old was placed in foster care. Daryl was, and in the time that he was in foster care, there was a group that were at the docks. By the way, the foster parent is a county official in this area, and according to the court documents, there was a fight at the dock. This going to be 8th grader had knife wounds and then was held underwater. A 17-year-old is now in custody, charged with murder. A 16-year-old also facing criminal charges here. So a lot of questions remain. How was this foster placement made? What did the state know about the home this child was placed into and the other children living there? And who was responsible for supervising this rising 8th grader? And where was that person in that moment that all of this went down between this group of kids on those docks? So that's the backstory here in this story developing in South Carolina. We'll keep you posted on this and other events happening throughout the country here today on the 11Alive stream. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to sit down with the superintendent of Atlanta Public Schools ahead of their first day back for all the kids and teachers. Welcome back to the 11 Live stream. Cheryl Preheim here with you on a first day back to school for some counties, including Barrow County. So some people heading back today, some classrooms starting to get full, but Monday is a big day for back to school. It's the day for Atlanta Public Schools. We are so glad to have the superintendent of Atlanta Public Schools, Dr. Brian Johnson, in the streaming studio with us today. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you for having us.
I said no summer break for the superintendent.
No, it's a few rest days and far between, but it was a good summer.
But important time for planning, logistics, all those kinds of things. What were your main focuses coming into the start of this next school year?
Absolutely. So I would say it's really three buckets. Bucket one is obviously hiring the best teachers and staff that we possibly can. We employ more than 8,000 employees in total, more than 3,000 teachers, and so we have one vacancy as of today. Any French teachers that are interested in Thurl High School, we
Parlez-vous
have
français?
We absolutely, yeah. I don't know how to respond to that, but
I don't know either. I don't know what I just
but
said.
we do have one vacancy, and so we're very proud of what's been done. Every bus route is covered, et cetera. So that's one big bucket. The second big bucket is obviously training and support of our teachers that we have, so preparing them to really receive students with excellence, everything from the classroom environment to the content area in which they're teaching and delivering, and so we want to make sure they're fully prepared. And then thirdly, obviously, we want to make sure the operational needs are met, and so a lot of HVAC and roofs and all the things that you need to do, preparing floors, painting, et cetera, to make sure that when students arrive, that they're in the absolute best learning environment that we can ensure they're in.
Yeah, HVAC in August in Georgia is an essential thing.
Yeah.
Talk about the significance. I don't want to make light of it. It is significant that you have one and only one vacancy in bus routes and in classrooms.
Absolutely.
Talk about the significance of that given the challenges there have been in many districts.
Well, I give my board a ton of credit. They had the foresight, right as I was arriving a little bit before, to really make an investment in our employees. And so they made an 11% pay increase, and that has paid and yielded dividends for us in regards to our ability to fill our vacancies with not just teachers, but highly skilled and experienced teachers. And so our average teacher year of experience is 13.8, and so almost 14 years of experience. So we're not necessarily getting novice teachers, not that we are against novice teachers coming in and learning their craft and sharpening their craft, but we're unapologetic about our belief that our students deserve the best. And so it is significant for a pretty large urban school district to be positioned the way we are.
Yeah, congratulations on that. 50,000 Atlanta
Absolutely.
Public School students
Absolutely.
heading back in the doors on Monday. What new initiatives, what are the new things that those students and the teachers will see this year?
Yeah. So for us, more so than new, our strategic plan that we've laid out is a back to basics approach. And so we're really focused on the fundamentals and the foundations, the work that really matters. And so literacy will remain important to us. We are excited. We're launching what we call an accelerated literacy model across 4 of our schools. And so we're really leaned into literacy across the district, making sure in particular that by 3rd grade, as many of our students as possible are proficient or have met the state level expectation in regards to literacy and can achieve at really high levels. And so we're excited about that. We're excited about our work around post-secondary. This summer, actually, we launched for the first time, came from a board member idea. It's like, why don't we do some summer advising? And I was like, why don't we do some summer advising? And so we offered free advising sessions for students, and they were able to really work in 2 buckets. Area 1 was to look at what do I need to graduate high school, but area 2 was what do I want to do after high school? And so we're really excited about receiving our students, and we think we're positioned to make it a great year.
What a great idea to have those
Absolutely.
touch points
Absolutely.
throughout the summer, but really focused on what comes next to just
Absolutely.
keep that vision going.
Yep.
If you're just joining us, we're talking to the superintendent of Atlanta Public Schools, Dr. Brian Johnson. What's your message for families heading into this start of a new school year?
Yeah, so we first thank families for allowing us to serve their children. I think it's important to acknowledge that we know that you are affording us an opportunity to educate your best and your brightest as a father, not just a superintendent. I believe and expect and sincerely appreciate that. I think secondly, it's a very simple message. We want your child in school every day. Oftentimes we can miss the importance of just showing up. showing up makes a huge difference, and we need our students in school every day if we want them to reach their highest and best potential. And so we need our students to show up. And then secondly, I would say work with us and walk alongside us. And so we encourage our parents to access the website. We've launched a new app to try to make it super accessible for parents. But what we know works is when a parent is working alongside the school community, really great things can happen for children. And so we covet that level of support.
Yeah, it's really that partnership with
It is.
parents,
It is.
teachers, and the students.
Absolutely.
How is APS handling the new Georgia initiative about cell phones
Yeah.
during the course of a school day?
Yeah. So again, I give our board and our district leaders, our teachers, a lot of credit. We went full K through 12 district-wide last year with our cell phone expectation. Our board had a personal electronic device policy that had been in play for some time, and so we were able to fine-tune that a little bit, but then also to say district-wide that we are going to restrict, frankly, cell phone usage, and it went over pretty well. It'll be even better this year, and so we are embracing that. I'd also say that our board has leaned into things like screen time and making sure that we are really intentional about the value that when students access technology, we want it to be in really meaningful ways that are going to impact learning, and so I think we're positioned really well to really take the continued steps in those areas.
So like on a day-to-day basis, what does that look like? No phones in class?
No phones in class.
No phones in class.
No phones in class.
What has the feedback been from teachers about that?
Yeah. It's been positive, and from school leaders, really the same. It's always interesting. I was with student advisory day before yesterday, or maybe yesterday. My days run together, but they have adapted. And so it's high school students, and so I always ask that question: how's it going? They've had a year of it, and overall it's just what they've come to expect and what they're used to. And so the adjustments have been made, the feedback has been positive, and we'll keep moving forward in that way.
Yeah, I wondered if once the distractions may be out, if everyone sees that there's a benefit there.
Absolutely. You're look. We all probably have a little bit of guilt that we can acknowledge, or fault we can acknowledge when it comes to the amount of time that we spend in front of a cell phone or on a screen or on an app or on a social media outlet. And so this really gives us an opportunity to make sure that learning is at the center of everything that's being done. And really the message is, whether it's screen time, whether it's cell phones, the real message that we want to articulate and we want to make sure comes front and center is that the teacher makes the ultimate difference in what's happening in regards to learning. And our teachers are really highly skilled and trained. We're compensating them well, and we'll continue to compensate them well because we want the best in front of our students. And as a byproduct of that, we want to make sure they're locked in and paying attention. And so it's a good thing.
There's a more growing conversations about mental health support.
Absolutely.
Students go through a lot for a lot of different reasons. What avenues or conversations does the district have about those things that may be outside of a classroom but are very important for what happens inside a classroom?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. What's outside the classroom does impact what happens inside the classroom. And so as a byproduct of that, we've made investments. Our district has really, since 2023, 2024, we've more than doubled the amount of resources that we've invested in everything student services. But we will continue to invest. One of the things that we know is important, and we recognize, connected to the cell phones and social media, et cetera, is that our students are dealing with a lot more than I go back and I think about 100 years ago when I went to school. I didn't have to worry about a rumor being spread in like 2 seconds, right? And our students have to deal with that now, and so they have all these pressures, and we know that we need to support them, and our board is committed to that. Our teachers and leaders are committed to that, and we'll continue to invest in that area.
That's a really good point. The kinds of things that come at them, and right in line with that, also the conversations about school safety
Yeah.
are so integral
They
in
are.
everyone's minds, from parents to teachers to administrators. Talk
Yeah.
us through what's
Yeah.
happening on
Yeah.
that front.
Well, Atlanta Public Schools is a leader in that regard, and I say that actually coming from a different place, but everything from hardening our exterior, controlled access doors, to making sure that our teachers have strategic systems where it allows them to, in the case of an emergency, to immediately make a notification via an alarm that's around their neck or in close proximity. We have many structures in place, and I won't go through all of them because that's not a good thing to do. But in reality, again, we know that our students send their children to school, and the one thing they expect above everything else is that child is going to return home safe. So it's something we take really, really seriously, and are really committed to as a school system, as are school systems across the country, because unfortunately it's been a challenge we've all faced.
Yeah, no doubt. When you look at all of the things in front of Atlanta Public Schools, is there one area of focus, perhaps a challenge or something you would still like to see in terms of something like a mountain still being climbed that is a focus as we move forward maybe in the next couple of years ahead?
Yeah, we've got mountains. I think we have and are proud of some of the work that we've been able to be a part of, and the team that is helping push the work forward. But literacy will continue to be a focus for us. We know that we have a lot of opportunity in that area. We also know that post-secondary preparation will continue to be a focus for us, just making sure that when our students, we want them to graduate at a very high level, but we want them to matriculate and experience success beyond high school at a very high level. And then also we have to continue to lean in and tighten up operationally. And so when I started, we had about a $100 million budget deficit. This year, first time since 2023, we were able to balance the budget. We were able to balance that budget while still making investments in our employees through pay raises, while still making investments in our students via curricular resources and materials, and making investments in exceptional education. And also, this budget cycle, we were able to return about $10 million to residential taxpayers in Atlanta. But what we also know is that as we project out, we've got some challenges that lie ahead, and so we've had to make some difficult decisions as a school system, and we'll have to continue to do that. But the more we're able to collectively lean in and make those decisions, the better position we're going to be to invest in the things that matter most for our students.
And if there is a win you would love everyone to be able to celebrate with the district, what would it be?
We feel pretty good about what we believe we're going to see in regards to our student outcomes. And so, it's still to be determined, but we know that our teachers and our leaders and our staff have been engaged in the right work. We know that our students this past year worked extremely hard. And we're very hopeful and optimistic that collectively we're going to be able to celebrate a measure of success.
We really appreciate the time. If there's a message to families as you head into Monday, what is that?
We are excited to see families Monday. We are excited to see your children on Monday, but not just Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and the rest of the weeks to come.
We really appreciate the time.
Thank
Here's
you.
to a wonderful year ahead, and we appreciate you coming in to talk more
Thank you
about
for
it.
having
Good
us.
to see you, Superintendent
You too.
Dr. Johnson. We're going to take a quick break here on the 11Alive stream. We'll be right back. Happy Friday, everybody. Cheryl Preheim here in the Streaming Center. Really excited about this next segment as we've been talking about back to school and the awesome ways community and community partnerships are helping families get ready for it. Happy to see a friend, Jamel McKenzie, with council member for College Park. Good to see you.
Cheryl.
And we have YK Osiris, an artist, with us as well.
Yes,
You're
ma'am.
going to be a celebrity at an event we're going to talk about.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you both for being in the streaming studio. So
Yes,
happy
ma'am.
you're both here. So let's start with you about what is this back to school event and what can people expect?
Well, actually, this is a back-to-school event that we've been doing. It's actually going to be our third year, and we are having book bag giveaway, food, but we're also having a pool party. So it's going to be lots of fun for our young people and their families. We're expecting about anywhere from 800 to 1,200 people to come through. It's going to be 5:30 this evening at the Conley Recreation Center pool, but we're also using the Historical Society. They have a parking lot there, and we're taking up 2 parking lots, a lot of street sidewalk, and a whole pool. So
It's a party meets fill a need because it's a back to school giveaway to help support these families too.
Absolutely. And there's so many families that are in need. And I know there's lots of back to school events going on, but the need is just that great. And so I'm excited that we were able to do this. We have several organizations that have come together with us to make this happen. Food in the City is our main organization. That's Jakeem Smith, and he rounded up all of the different organizations, which I'll probably mention later on. But we also got some talent, and so we've got this
I
gentleman
love that.
right here.
Because the pool party would be popular, but I don't think as popular as you, YK.
Right.
We all did have a good time.
No, you're going to be a big draw. How much fun for not just the kids, but the families. Talk about what made you want to get involved.
Man, when I was a child, I always, wanted the new Jordans. I always wanted to, go first to the school, first day of school. So, I wanted it as a child. So now it's like, man, the kids, I want to see the kids the same thing. I love kids. I got 6 sisters. I'm the only boy. So, this me growing up, I just always been around kids and it's always been around the love. How much, I inspired them, they inspired me. So, I just love giving back since I was a kid myself. So I think it's a blessing you're able to give back. You're able to pour into other people and give them experience that you never had before. I think that's the most blessing right now is giving back.
Yeah, Councilwoman was talking about the need out there. That is real because there are a lot of back to school events, but it still doesn't always cover all the needs. So every single one of them is so important to make sure there's not one child that goes in with what they don't need to succeed, and you get to be a part of that. How much does that mean to you, YK?
It means a lot. I feel like, it's more to come too. I want to do more. I want to this build is and expand it too. I think it need to be expanded into different countries, different, cities, and give back to a lot of people because a lot of people need, like you say, people need it. Like they need just not just giving back, but love, the feeling, just giving back to the emotions of these kids, just, the families, they just need love. And I feel like I have so much inspiration and so much impact that I'm able to just give you my energy and my love. I think that's the most important part to me.
Well, they're going to be excited to meet you, and you'll be able to do that when you're there. I like the energy around this event because, like we said, pool party celebration, giving school supplies. But are there other resources there that people should know about? What else will be there for these families?
Well, one of the things is College Park Elementary School, which is our local school, will be actually registering students because it's really important for us to have those first 5 days of school are critical for a child to be there. And also, the first 5 days of school will determine how much staffing you have in your school. So that is going to be one of the ingredients in terms of working with our local school. But we also have voter registration. We've got an election coming up again, always. And so Fulton County Votes will be out there with us. And then we have resources for veterans. We have resources for families. And then just lots of fun and food. So food, fun, bouncy houses, you name it. Pretty much we've got it going on today.
Pretty soon in the council member Dropbox is going to say, can we have one of these like the last Friday of every month or something like this? Now there's an idea. But this is important because while the focus is back to school, you're really saying it's a greater community event.
Yes, yes. And we actually have been doing community events throughout the year. We do our Community Thrive. Usually we do about 6 to 8 a year because we realize that the need is there. And just as YK said, it's about showing love. It's a great thing to be an elected official, but if you can't love back on the people that put you in office, whether they put you there or not, they're your community. And I believe that a healthy community makes a healthy city. So each of our neighborhoods, and that's kind of what equity is about. It's making sure that those who have the greatest needs are able to at least compete with those that already have the resources.
Yeah, absolutely. And if everyone has a little to give, then everyone has what they need.
Exactly.
What are you most excited about for the year ahead?
I am excited, again, about our partnership with the school system. So we're doing a special program for our schools, our teachers, and we already started. We did a luncheon for all the teachers in College Park Elementary School on Monday during their pre-planning. But I also have some more programs that I want YK to get involved with us. We're doing a youth leadership academy that will continue through the school year and a youth council. So those are the things I really see. If when we pour into our young people and our children, that's really helping our families as well. It's helping our parents because we provide resources for the parents that they may not have access to.
YK, if my kids hear it from you, they're going to hear it differently than if they hear it from mom. So what inspiration do you have for those kids heading back to school about what that means later in life?
Man, school is power. Knowledge is power, I would say. So, man, I want to say take it day by day. Everything is not perfect, but this give love, be yourself, and show gratitude. I feel like a lot of these kids, man, they just want to look great. They just want to feel great. They just want to get love. And school is a place for everybody to get together and show each other love. So I feel like just get school done and make sure you be good in school. Make sure you get them grades. Because you can play football, you can play basketball, but as long as them grades is right, because knowledge is power. I don't care where you go in the world. When you got knowledge, that will get you through the doors, so as long as you get that school done, that's all I'm happy for.
Yeah, that foundation happens in a classroom.
In the classroom, you gotta be a student first, and you learn. So I think that's the biggest thing for the school.
It's a great message. And what does it mean to have a young, fantastic talent like YK partner with College Park?
It means it helps us to stay relevant. It means that, we're not, again, I've got a couple of years on me, but being able to have persons like himself and that are known in the community, and it also says to our young people, he did it, I can do it. They can see themselves in him faster than they can see themselves in me. So that's exciting. We're also going to be giving away shoes tomorrow. So we've got about 600 pairs of shoes that we're giving out. We decided not to combine that with this event because this is outside. So we'll be doing that inside. So
and it's going to get bigger.
It's going to get bigger. I know that's right. Haircuts too. We're doing haircuts and beauty.
Yes.
600 pair of shoes, haircuts, beauty, all of it.
Yeah.
And every piece is important.
It is.
Every one of those things you're mentioning is taking care of like the whole person.
That's right.
Really
little
excited
things matter.
about it.
Little things matter.
They certainly do. Well, thank you guys both so much for coming in here, and we can't wait to hear more about it. Send us lots of pictures and video. We can't wait to see the pool party in action. If someone's just joining us, we're talking about College Park, City of College Park. Really quick, again, where do they need to go and what time?
Okay, we're going to be at 3636 College Street, which is the Conley Recreation Center, at 5:30 this evening, and we'll be there to 8:30. It's a first-come, first-served basis. We do have persons who have registered in advance, so if you haven't registered, you can still register on site. But parents and guardians must be present in order for the children to attend. So, and I also want to thank our sponsors. I got a few sponsors I just need to shout out. Hungry AF is actually taking care of all the food. 450 Degrees is cooking the food. DJ Primo is he's always does these for us at no cost. Shoot Your Shot Basketball, Ignite Resource Center, and the Chuma Williams Family Group are all giving towards this event, and we want to say thank you.
Yeah, it takes a village, and two of those village members with us here.
And shout out to you, too.
Yeah, that's true. Council member Jamel McKenzie and YK Osiris. Thanks so much for the time. Have a great pool party.
Thank you.
Happy back to school. We'll be right back here on the 11 Alive stream. Friday afternoon, making plans for the weekend ahead. Beautiful day today, but some things you need to know as you plan the next couple of days. That's why our weather impact team always taking good care of you. Meteorologist Julie Martin helping us out with the forecast for the weekend ahead. How we looking?
Yeah, looks like we are going to be getting some showers and storms over the weekend, Cheryl, but today is beautiful, so enjoy it.
It is so nice.
Hopefully you can get outdoors this afternoon, this evening. It's going to be really nice, just less humid, more comfortable, lots of sunshine. So taking you out right now, we do have a little bit of a haze, and that is from that wildfire smoke from Canada. 87 at the airport right now, but the humidity is down in the 40s. But there's that smoke. It's been with us for a few days now. I'm sure you've noticed it, and it looks like it will stay with us through about Saturday and then make its exit on Sunday. The good news is the air quality is fine. We're in the good to moderate range, so shouldn't be impacting your health in any way, but it is producing some really pretty sunsets, so we do like to see those pictures. Still dry today, lower 90s, lower humidity. Do need to still stay cool. We're in the summer. 87 degrees right now, 88 in Covington. We've got some 70s up there in North Georgia. Feels like temperatures are pretty comfortable right now because of that low humidity, so really not very much different than our air temperatures. We will likely top out maybe around 90, 91 degrees later on this afternoon, and then stay in the 80s for most of your Friday evening under clear skies. All right, our average is 90, as I mentioned, likely topping out right about there at 91. And it does look like a great night for some baseball if you're heading out to Truist Park. The Nationals are in town. First pitch, 88 degrees with a mix of sun and clouds, but you'll notice the lower humidity for sure, so a great night for some baseball. All right, let's talk about the rain potential over the weekend. Nothing today. We should stay nice and dry. Our front is off to the south. Here's what's going to happen, though. That front is going to be nudged up north, and with that, allowing an opening for humid tropical air to be pumped in from the south. So that is going to be triggering our showers and storms. And some of those tropical downpours can be really heavy and trigger flash flooding. So this is one model here, starting us off Saturday at around 11 in northwest Georgia, noticing some really heavy tropical downpours may be coming through by 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, and then pushing south of us later on in the evening, and then maybe more of the same on Sunday. So we do have a flood risk on Saturday, no flood warnings, but there is a slight risk of flooding all throughout our viewing area. So just watch out for those low-lying areas and be weather aware. Of course, with those heavy downpours can come lots of trouble on the roadways. Looking at the severe threat, a low-level threat on Saturday in northwest Georgia. The rest of us are just in good old thunderstorm territory in terms of the threat. The extreme northwest corner of Georgia now under a level 2. That's new. So some of those storms could turn severe at any time. Just have to, again, be weather aware. And then the weekend outlook looks like we'll stay in the 80s with a 60% chance of rain. Lower rain chances in general as we head into next week. But we do return to a more typical summertime pattern next week with those chances of afternoon storms pretty much every day. Temperature-wise, we stay in the 80s, though, until about midweek next week, and then we start to see those 90s creep back in.
All right, last day of July.
Yeah.
Kind of nice, the last day of July. Get a little moment away from the humidity, and then bam.
Yeah, it's
bam,
back,
August.
it's back.
Here
And
we
then
go,
yeah,
August. All
yeah,
right, Georgia, we still love you. We love you.
We
All
do.
right. Thanks a lot, Julie. Have a great weekend.
You too.
All right. A story we want to get you to right now that is something a lot of people are talking about. While Atlanta rolls out its new blight tax, one community south of the city is demonstrating what redevelopment looks like. Senior investigator Rebecca Lindstrom shows us the results and the community winning praise for doing this right.
Blight. Say the word and just about everybody knows what you mean. Just in case you're confused, here are a few examples. Most communities agree they don't want it. It's an eyesore that often attracts crime. Still, getting rid of these rundown properties isn't easy.
It used to be an abandoned lot, and now we've got actually work. You can hear going on here.
Macon-Bibb Mayor Lester Miller gave us a tour of 5 houses under construction in the southern part of the county.
Now I look at the house that's behind me. Clearly, is this a sign of what used to be here?
That's correct. Probably worse.
Why are you able to do the construction here, but the house behind me still remains blighted?
There are different processes. Like, some of this may come through a tax foreclosure. Maybe they haven't paid their taxes in a while. Some of it gets transferred to the Land Bank Authority. Some of them may be tied up in litigation.
The vacant properties are on a list of about 5,200 identified 5 years ago. Since then, about half have been torn down or fixed up by the property's owner. Some are abandoned homes, others buildings like this long-forgotten grocery that is now green space. The tool pushing many of these projects is a blight tax.
Every week we get our code enforcement officers, our attorneys in there, myself in there, and we pick up sections of the community. We ride down road by road, and we stop at each house and say, what about this one?
Miller says it took his team about a year to get the rhythm. And after collecting more than $3 million in blight taxes, property owners are taking notice.
And now, when we go into a neighborhood and we do 1 or 2 of these properties, you'll see 3 or 4 next door become more vibrant themselves. They start getting permits, reaching out to us instead of us reaching out to them.
Because when his office reaches out, the clock starts ticking to bring the property into compliance. In Macon-Bibb, that blight tax can push a $380 tax bill to more than $5,000 on a $100,000 property.
It's about trying to prevent and mitigate the blight before it happens.
11Alive investigates surveyed communities across the metro to see how or if they're using the tool. In the decades Kennesaw has had the option on its books, it's only applied it to 5 properties. Cobb used it once on a rundown strip mall, now redeveloped. But in less than 2 years, Forest Park has used the tax to get 65 properties turned around. Now DeKalb is warning its residents on social media its blight tax has gone into effect.
If you're not maintaining your properties, then you're going to pay an increased tax rate.
Which is why some in Atlanta are so frustrated. 2 years after passing its blight tax, it is yet to assess a single property. Because these houses aren't in Macon, they are in Atlanta.
But if you never get started, you're never getting started.
In April, Atlanta did tap the city solicitor's office to head the program. But 2 months later, when the city council passed a resolution asking it to tax a long-stalled high-rise project, a spokesperson said they still weren't ready to start the clock. Miller says he'd rather properties get fixed up without the government involved. But if hitting absentee owners in the wallet is what it takes, at least Macon Bibb uses the money towards projects like these.
This is going to be about a 3-bedroom house here, probably 1,200 square feet.
A crime hotspot, now affordable housing and hope. Senior investigator Rebecca Lindstrom here in the Streaming Center to talk more about this. Macon, an example of how it can be effective when it is utilized. The question is, why aren't more cities and entities utilizing it?
And I want to point out, we did this story specifically because a lot of people, they'll criticize journalists. They say, you always say what's wrong. And certainly we have done some stories challenging the city of Atlanta on why, even after 2 years, it's just now getting its process going for the blight tax. So we have certainly done that type of accountability journalism. But you always hear, well, you never talk about anything that's going well or anyone who's doing it right. So we went looking. We went looking throughout the metro for communities maybe that were doing it right. And really what stuck out was Macon-Bibb County as a shining example of someone who has been using this tool for years and has been able to make a big difference in their community. But I would say, even as we were talking with the mayor, he pointed out that this opportunity, this tool has been at the community's disposal for years, but the government, the municipalities just really weren't embracing it. And so it wasn't until he came into office and he was really hearing from people out sort of on the campaign trail that they wanted something done about blight, that he sat back and he said, well, we've got this tool. Come on, let's go. Let's start using it. And so it's sort of to your point, having the tool is one thing, but really putting it into practice is another.
It's really taking that first step, and perhaps Macon-Bibb County's Forest Park, another example you pointed out in your story of saying once it was used and it was realized how effective it can be, then you see the momentum that creates.
And yet there are other municipalities like Kennesaw or even Cobb County that have used it. They know that the tool is there, but they haven't used it to the same extent. And when I asked why, they just kind of said, well, it works more sitting on our books as a deterrent to blight. So not every community has the same blight challenge. And sometimes the deterrent is enough. Our survey was off of, really, how is it used, as in, who did you have to go and really assess the fine onto in order to get them to clean up their property? So that doesn't mean those communities didn't say, hey, here's the blight tax if you don't get this fixed up by this time, and then they just happened to do that. They took the corrective action before the penalty was actually assessed. So the tool might be being used more often as that kind of preventative measure in some of those communities, but just isn't having to go all the way to the lengths where that property owner is having to pay the price. Other communities told us it was a lot of work. Just identifying the properties, doing all the things that were going to be required to legally be able to assess that extra tax just didn't pay off for them. They didn't have enough blight to create the infrastructure that was going to be necessary to go through that process. And so they don't use it. They use other tools, but that's just not the one that they found to be the most cost effective for their resources. So a lot of different reasons, and it just kind of goes to the complexity of getting rid of blight in the first place.
Yeah, I was going to say at the heart of this is eyesores in communities that people really love and feel like maybe don't allow the community to reach a potential they know it can reach, and it just sort of feels like it might be dragging up a part of that community down. So maybe another good thing about all of us who get to see Rebecca's story here is if the community members are aware that this is a tool, they could proactively go to their representatives and say, hey, let's look at this.
For most communities, it's going to be code enforcement. And it's by going to code and telling them about these properties that then they can look back and say, all right, what's going on with this property? How do we address this issue? Even when I was talking with the mayor, I said to him, I'm like, okay, you're showing us all of this great work that's in front of me, but there's this house right behind me that is in just as much disrepair. So why is this section moving forward and behind me seems trapped in time? And that's when he kind of gave that list that I know it's a lot of terminology that doesn't mean much to the average person who just wants to get rid of a house. But he was explaining to me there are properties that maybe someone owned it. It was already starting to fall into disrepair. The person died. It was willed to a family member. Maybe that family member was never found to be told, or the house already had so little value that that family member didn't have a lot of money to do anything about it. So they just kind of abandoned it. And so it's that process. You've got to find out who legally owns that property to then go to, them and start this process of getting it corrected. And sometimes just finding that legal owner who may very well not live in the state, could be generations removed, passed down and passed down and passed down. They've got to go back to that original person now who on the books is responsible and maybe hasn't been recorded in the tax deeds and things like that. And then have that conversation about what do we do about this property? How do we get it back up to code?
Land is valuable, and for most people, it is the biggest investment that they have. Is there any drawback if someone's watching this and saying, "Will someone lose from this?" We see why it's good for the community to have an eyesore taken down, but is there any takeaway from any entity in this equation that you can see?
You mean as far as somebody who might have a blighted property? I would say no, because you're only increasing the value of your property by fixing it up.
Taking care of the problem.
By taking care of the problem. And I think the issue we get to with some of these is it is an investment property, but it's not like I live in it and it's my investment property. It's someone in Washington or California, their investment problem. So they're not living with the eyesore. They're not living with the crime that might be occurring in and around that property because it's been allowed to be vacant for so long. But even for that investor, I mean, that's what Make and Bib was really experiencing is when they went in and they started kind of using this stick to get a property or two into compliance, other investors around them or homeowners around them said, oh, the change is happening. It's finally coming. We've been waiting for there to be a financial incentive for us to do something about this blight so that we can make more money, so that we can recoup on our investment. It's happening. So we're not going to wait for the stick. We're going to go ahead and start fixing it up because we now believe that this area is going to generate income, is going to be a place that people want to start living in again. So it's that chicken and egg.
Yeah.
You need something to start the process. And at least in Make and Bib, they're finding that this is a good tool. Now, I will say one of the reasons that they're able to do this in Make and Bib, perhaps a little easier than Atlanta, is Make and Bib is a consolidated government. Like the mayor is over Macon and Bibb County, whereas here we have an entirely different administration for Fulton County and for the city of Atlanta. So in some ways, you've got to get these two to work together and come together in order to make something like this work. And while I know all of these municipalities want to get rid of blight, sometimes there's a lot of different ways on how to do it.
All right. Well, we really appreciate you showing how effective it can be, and we'll keep the conversation going. Thank you so much, Senior
Absolutely.
Investigative Reporter Rebecca Lindstrom. Much more coming up for you here on the 11Alive stream. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back on this Friday. I'm Rebecca Lindstrom, moved over for Cheryl Preheim, and thank you for sticking around with us on this Friday afternoon. I want to get an opportunity to talk with Dr. Erica Brownfield. She is with the UGA School of Medicine, and why this is important is because, you know, a lot of us are thinking about our kids going back to school on Monday. College, a few weeks away before they're going to be kicking back. But when they go back, there's going to be a very special class that is starting at UGA. It is a historic milestone for the University of Georgia because the School of Medicine is welcoming its inaugural class of future physicians. And joining me now to talk about all of this is Dr. Erica Brownfield. Thank you so much for spending some time with us on a Friday afternoon. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for inviting me.
So when we think about our medical community, the areas that people can go to get this education, I mean, how many schools do we even have in Atlanta right now, or sort of in Georgia?
Well, in Georgia, there are 5 allopathic medical schools, and there is 1 osteopathic medical school, and that's PCOM.
Okay. And I think a lot of people have heard of Augusta as, you know, one of the primary medical schools. I know we've got Emory in the private sector. So how do you see the University of Georgia really being able to add to this equation and offer a growing opportunity for students here in our state?
Well, I'm going to back up just a second if I can to get to your earlier question. So around the country, ironically, UGA is the 159th medical school in the country. And it's ironic that we have 159 counties here in Georgia. And so how UGA is going to contribute to this is we have a huge shortage of physicians in the state of Georgia. We are now offering the 2nd public medical school in the state, in addition to Augusta University Medical College of Georgia. So we will be able to hopefully start to narrow that gap between the physicians and the patients that need us throughout the state. And our goal really is to serve over time all those 159 counties.
How do you feel that this medical school, this medical program at UGA is going to be different than what we're seeing at these other schools?
I think what's going to be different is, and we've actually already started our education, so our students this week started out their orientation, and instead of an orientation in the classroom, they actually started with a road trip of Georgia. And so our kind of philosophy is, in order to care for Georgia, you have to first learn and love Georgia, and you can't really do that well in a classroom just with your classmates. You really need to get out there and start hearing the stories of people, hearing from communities, really starting to understand the lay of the land and the challenges, the healthcare challenges in Georgia. And so hopefully by starting off with building those relationships from the very beginning and doing a longitudinal community service project with communities around the state over the 4 years with a capstone project, we not only want to educate our future physicians about medicine, but we really want them to look at the human and the community side and the service and outreach of what medicine really is. And it all starts with relationships from the very beginning.
We saw a photo of the inaugural class there for just a few moments. What was the response from students to creating this program? Did you get as many applications as you thought you would? Was it overwhelming? What was just the reaction?
So the reaction was fantastic. We were a little bit behind in our accreditation in terms of when we could even open the application process. So because of where it landed, we only had 2 weeks to open up our applications and then close them. And in that 2-week period, we had over 2,000 applications and had to quickly go through those 2,000 applications, do a holistic review, and interviewed about 10% of those to get to our final 64 students that came on Monday to our inaugural class. We've already opened up applications for 27, so we'll have the full admissions year to take applications, and we have already gotten a tremendous response from the people who are interested in UGA School of Medicine.
And will you be looking again for 64 students, or are you planning to expand the number of students in the program at that point?
So our big, plan is over 8 years to double the class size. So, but incremental each year because we don't want to, grow too quickly, and we want to be mindful of that intentional growth over an 8-year period, but to double the class size.
So, knowing you're getting so many applications and can only take a handful of them, what are the things that you're really looking for? Who are the students that you believe this is the program we want you in it?
I think we are looking for people who have a real tie to Georgia, whether they are coming from out of state or in state. They have to have a tie to the state of Georgia. They really want to make an impact in Georgia. And that really is wherever that is. And we are focused on not only rural medicine, primary care medicine, we are also interested in training our subspecialists, our super subspecialists, whether it's urban, rural, primary care, wherever, but we want them to be interested in one day coming back and serving the state of Georgia because that's super important to our land grant mission of the university.
I know that I've done stories myself reflecting on some of the data around the shortage of medical professionals in our rural counties and communities, or even just certain areas of focus that we have shortages within various parts of the state. How important is it to really fulfill that mission, to know that these are going to be students who want to remain Georgia-centric?
It is a very important part of our mission. And just like you said, there are parts of the state where there are no physicians at all. Now, a lot of that has to do with the population. So oftentimes what you'll see is a rural hospital that is serving multiple counties in that area. But we know access to care is extremely important and really the first step into getting care that patients need. So part of our road trip was taking students to some of these locations where there are not necessarily services for everything for everyone, but they serve as a hub to kind of start, at least filling a need that is desperately needed in rural Georgia. But to get them that first look in terms of, what they can do in a smaller community that's so important to providing these services that are sometimes life and death for individuals.
I imagine a lot of these students only know what they know. They know the communities kind of that they grew up in. So what was the response when they took this tour into some of these more rural parts of the state?
I mean, to be perfectly honest, most people who applied to medical school were from kind of that metro Atlanta area, the 27 counties that encompass that. So we did some reflection on the bus trip back, and the stories that were told by the students really was kind of eye-opening because maybe they had an experience in a hospital, but maybe not quite like the hospitals in Thomaston or Upson or Washington County. So for them to see this, it really kind of, they may have had a picture in their mind what rural medicine meant to them, but now they could see firsthand, some of these rural hospitals have a Da Vinci robotic, device to use in surgery. So it may have maybe decrease some of the myths of what students felt like before they were actually able to see it. And I think it did at least give them an appreciation of what medicine is all about. And it is about the community. It is about relationships. It is about that trust with physicians and patients. And no matter where you go, rural community, urban community, you don't want to lose sight of that. And I think it really opened their minds to something maybe they weren't ever considering before.
What would you say to a young dreamer, someone who has always wanted to be a physician? They're in high school, maybe even still in middle school, and they're thinking maybe now because there are more opportunities to get this education, maybe this is something I can do. What would you say to that dreamer who has this as a goal in mind?
I would say never give up on your dreams. You have to work hard. You only not have to have the intelligence and the book sense, but really it is about those people skills and about what you do to be human, because being human is what makes you a great doctor in the long run. So I would tell them, find physicians that you admire, learn from them, see what they did. You're going to get lots of different information and pieces of advice. Try not to go down the rabbit hole and the trap of the student doctor networks and the Reddits and the advice that's given there, because oftentimes that's not necessarily the best advice. And keep going with your dream. Keep looking for opportunities, and know that even if you don't get into medical school, eventually you can still serve patients and communities with all these other professions that help physicians in the healthcare workforce. So there's multiple ways to take care of people.
It doesn't always have to be that one specific, like I'm going to be the OBGYN or whatever. There's a lot of
Right.
ways that you can be part of the medical field.
100%. And, as a team, every individual in that team makes a huge difference and is critical to delivering that care for people.
Dr. Erica Brownfield, thank you so much for being with us, and good luck with that inaugural class of future physicians.
Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend.
And stay with us. We'll be right back.
Today is the first day back at school for students in Barrow County. This as the district is trying to move forward nearly 2 years after the deadly shooting at Appalachia High School. And what a week it has been, because this first day comes right upon the heels of emotional testimony that we have been listening to earlier in the week for the sentencing of Colt and Colin Gray. 11Alive's Stefanech Haynock is there at Appalachia High School, where the district has made some efforts over the summer to kind of prepare for the new year.
So school leaders say that they have been focusing on safety over the summer, including testing out intruder drills and their emergency systems. And we know the first day of classes comes the same week that Colt Gray and his father both learned their sentencing in court this week. Yesterday, a Barrow County judge sentenced Colin Gray to 15 years in prison. The judge said while he did not pull the trigger, he failed to respond to repeated warning signs about his son's behavior and also left him with access to a rifle. The rifle used in the attack. And an Appalachia alumni, also a sister to one of the students that was inside during that shooting but survived. She tells us she believes Colin Gray deserved more prison time. She also says he failed as a father.
Today, they are going through something that they only can understand. We still have 2 years of students that are still there that experienced this tragedy, and you know, the best thing that they can be doing right now is being there for one another, hugging one another, and having a sense of relief that this trial and this very public case is now over.
Prosecutors say the conviction sends a message that parents can be held criminally responsible when they ignore clear warning signs. Now, earlier this week, 16-year-old Colt Gray was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole after pleading guilty to killing students Mason Shermahorn and Christian Angula, along with teachers Christina Irmi and Richard Aspinwall. And this is also the first day back since the district and the sheriff's office agreed to increase the number of school resource officers from 12 to now 25. I'm Stefanech Haynock, 11Alive News.
Now to a devastating case developing out of Gwinnett County, where police say a mother is charged with second-degree murder after her 1-year-old died inside of a hot car. We're getting the latest now from 11Alive's Ariana Manise.
Police say officers found the baby in the parking lot of Northside Hospital, Gwinnett, where the mother worked, dead in his car seat. 29-year-old Deja Coleman is now facing charges of second-degree murder and second-degree cruelty to children. Police say the murder charge is based on neglect, not malicious intent. Investigators say Coleman dropped her two older children off at daycare Wednesday morning, then drove to Northside Hospital, Gwinnett, arriving around 7 a.m. Police say her 1-year-old son remained in the back seat until a person walking through the employee parking lot found him about 8 hours later. Now, officers broke the window, but say the child had already died. Investigators say they used the vehicle's tag information to identify the owner, then located Coleman inside the hospital. And they say that she was devastated to find out what happened. Investigators say the mother described the morning routine she followed every day before this tragedy when she spoke to investigators.
Her normal routine is to take the older kids into daycare, come back and retrieve the baby out of the car seat. And unfortunately, yesterday morning, she forgot to make that second trip to the car.
Police say about an hour after the child was removed from the vehicle, the temperature inside the car measured 117 degrees, an hour after the baby was taken out. Meanwhile, her 2 other children were picked up by their father, and Coleman was later taken to jail. Reporting from the newsroom, I'm Ariana Manise for 11Alive.
And this morning, a 2-year-old girl is safe and back home, but this is after police say a man stole the car that she was sitting in. Police say the car was left running with the 2-year-old inside when it was stolen. So we want to show you the moment that police arrested the suspect. You can only imagine the mom's reaction, you know, just at waiting for this moment. This is 21-year-old Salim Martin. Officers say the charges are pending, but to that moment that we can all imagine in our heads, we want to show you the scene after police find the car along Howell Mill Road with the child inside and the little girl reunited with her mother. I can't, even as a mom with 2 kids, imagine what that would be like to all of a sudden see your car driving down the road and knowing that your child is inside. So some fast action there on the part of law enforcement. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm Rebecca Lindstrom. Coming up on 2:45 on this Friday afternoon. I think a lot of us have fallen kind of into this routine. We wake up in the morning, we hear about potentially another deal that's been discussed, and then by evening we hear about strikes that have happened despite that hope of a deal. Well, the back and forth between the United States and Iran are continuing, both sides launching missile attacks last night. This comes as hopes for a quick end to the 5-month conflict begin to fade. NBC's Matt Bradley has the latest from London.
Yet another round of tit-for-tat attacks between the United States and Iran overnight. The United States CENTCOM said that it had launched attacks against Iranian targets in a large wave of strikes in retaliation for Iran's attacks throughout the region. Now, Jordanian authorities said that they had seen Iranian attacks overnight as well. The Iranians have been consistently attacking neighbors in Jordan and Kuwait. They say trying to attack against American military installations in those countries in order to retaliate against American attacks. Now, this all comes amidst a troubling expansion of the fighting in the Middle East. Egyptian authorities had reported that 2 drones had struck LNG, or liquid natural gas tankers, at the port of Damietta, causing fires. And just today, it sounds as though the Egyptian Prime Minister's office has said that this was actually from Iran, confirming that those attacks were Iranian attacks. Now, this comes after Saudi Arabia joined the United States in attacking Iran-backed groups militant groups in the eastern part of Iraq that would expand the offensive side of the fight to include Saudi Arabia. Now, all of this is happening, as we heard last night, from President Donald Trump, who announced on his social media platform, Truth Social, that he had inked a deal between Hamas and Israel that would make Hamas disarm and cause Israel to withdraw, basically acceding to the second phase of the ceasefire that had been agreed to, ending most of the fighting in the Gaza Strip back in October of 2025. Now, it's unclear whether or not this is actually going to be moving ahead. We haven't heard officially from Hamas or from Israel, though Ghazi Hamid, a senior official and negotiator for Hamas, did say that Hamas's disarmament was contingent upon Israel withdrawing from the Gaza Strip fully. So basically, this is, as President Trump said, a historic deal, but it's one that moves this dial back to the agreement that was signed back in October of 2025. That whole process had been gridlocked by diplomatic impasse, by failed negotiations, and by the refusal of Hamas to continue to disarm. We haven't actually heard from the Israeli Prime Minister's office or from the Israeli government at all, but it's unclear at this hour whether or not this announcement is as historic or as consequential as the president has said it is. Matt Bradley, NBC News, London.
And now looking at another issue here back at home that also seems to be going back and forth. The president is in a battle with two Republican senators who are digging in and holding up the nomination vote for the pick to be the next attorney general. And he's not happy about that. First, he threatened to pull Todd Blanche's nomination until lawmakers leave office. Now he is insisting that Blanche be confirmed immediately. NBC's Chris Poloni has details from Washington.
President Trump's pick for Attorney General Todd Blanche in limbo. Two Republican senators holding out for guarantees in writing from the Justice Department. The president threatening Thursday to bypass holdout Senators John Cornyn and Tom Tillis altogether by waiting until they're out of Congress to renominate Blanche, writing, "I have no objection to temporarily withdrawing Todd's name if they do not do the right thing. But that's assuming Republicans retain control of the Senate."
Hey, 158 days, they can try it again, roll the dice on what the Senate confirmation process looks like next year.
The president now reversing course, posting on Truth Social Friday morning that Blanche should be immediately approved. The senators want changes to a settlement agreement between President Trump and the IRS and a written pledge that a Department of Justice anti-weaponization fund will not be established. Critics fear that fund could use taxpayer money to pay off the president's allies who claim they've been unfairly prosecuted.
The fact that they're balking at putting that in writing tells me that they were hoping to get by with this settlement agreement and his testimony and then revitalize those provisions at a later date.
That fear apparently valid. The president writing his prosecuted supporters should be given compensation. The domestic roadblock for the president coming as the war against Iran takes a new turn. A senior law enforcement official telling NBC News that a cyber attack on more than 30 municipal water systems across Minnesota this week points to Iranian-backed hackers, though the official cautions the forensic analysis is still in its early stages.
We've never had a similar incident, so this is the first.
The administration advising water systems across the country to take steps now to fend off similar cyber attacks.
And today, signs of progress in the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. President Trump announcing a deal has been reached for Hamas to disarm and Israel to withdraw its forces from Gaza. It comes 9 months after the two sides signed a ceasefire agreement, but no timetable for implementation has been announced. In Washington, Chris Poloni, NBC News.
Closer here to home, if you are planning to hit the road heading towards the southeast part of the state, well, you're going to want to stick around because there could be some impact on your drive. We're going to be telling you all about that right after the break. During the break, I looked up a map of fires across the United States, and if you were to look to the west, it is bad. There are a lot of fires impacting people's lives, their air quality, just their everyday life on that side of the country. Give it a moment. I think we might actually be able to pop that up. This is from the Western Fire Chiefs, and this is their fire map. There it is. You can just see, again, on the western part of the United States, even heading into a little further up north into Canada, and then you head over on the eastern side. Most of the fires we've been hearing about in the news for us have been in Canada. But if you were heading to southeast Georgia today, you want to pay attention to this next report as well, because we do have a few fires burning in Georgia at the moment, and one of those has forced officials to shut down part of Interstate 95. So far, there is no word on when that fire is going to be under control. Let's get the latest from Jasmine Lee.
These photos from the Georgia Forestry Commission show crews battling the Camden County fire Wednesday evening. Pat Stockett with Georgia Forestry Commission says a lightning strike sparked the fire in a remote marsh, making it difficult for crews to reach from the ground.
This is a very, very remote area with limited access, as the majority of the fire is out in the marsh area.
And when part of the interstate was shut down, Stacy Hershaw was working at the Chevron. She saw drivers pulling into the parking lot.
That evening, truckers started coming in here and said there was real bad smoke. They couldn't get through. So our whole parking lot was full of trucks because they weren't allowed to pass.
Hershaw says what started as a normal shift quickly turned into a busy night as people waited for hours for the interstate to reopen. By Wednesday night, traffic was moving again.
It's a lot of people and little chaos, but it was very busy.
Charles White with the Camden County Emergency Management says there is no threat to the community at this time. He says no homes or businesses are impacted, but crews are still working to contain the fire.
If that condition was to change, in coordination with forestry, we would adjust to communicate to the public.
And that is good news for those in the southeast part of Georgia. But shifting over to Europe, it is not the same situation. There certainly are businesses and homes that are being impacted by the wildfires that are burning there, including France's wine country. NBC's Raf Sanchez has the latest from southwestern France.
Hey there, yeah, we traveled into the fire zone and we're now in the village of Le Porge. This is really ground zero for the wildfire devastation here in France. 183 houses like this one were destroyed when the flames came ripping through here. This is by far the hardest hit community here in the Bordeaux region. You walk around this site and you can see people's lives frozen in time. Bicycles melted down. We saw what had been a jar of spare change, the individual pennies now stuck to wood that they had kind of melted into. Authorities in this region are now cautiously optimistic that they are getting these wildfires under control. There's a lot less smoke in the air than there has been in previous days. The temperatures are down. The conditions for fighting fires are improving. But there is still going to be an enormous amount of reconstruction on the other side of this. And this is a level of chaos that not even George Clooney and his family have been able to fully escape. They own a house in Provence in southern France. They say they were forced to evacuate earlier this week, and they left not knowing whether their home was still going to be standing when they got back. The evacuation order for their village, it's called Brignoles, has now been lifted. It appears that everyone was able to go home. We don't know at this stage whether the Clooney family actually returned back, but it is just an indication of how serious, how intense these fires have been all over France. I'll send it back to you.
Let's take a quick break. We'll be back in just a few moments. So it's Friday. Yay! And the big question always is then at work and amongst your friends, what are you going to do this weekend? A couple people might be having their weekend plans changed a little bit as they learn more about the forecast. Let's get to it. Our meteorologist, Julie Martin, telling us what is happening. I know today, beautiful. This weekend, little change. I know I was planning to go tubing down the Chattahoochee. And then I realized maybe Saturday not the best day to do that, or to be on the water if like a serious storm happens.
Yeah, right
Was
now,
that a good call?
right now the rain chances are up a little bit, especially for Saturday, and so with that we could see some storms developing in
So
the
maybe
afternoon.
a good decision to punt to a different
Yeah,
weekend.
I think so. I think so. It won't be an all-day washout, but still, yeah, you don't want to be out on the river when there's a storm around. Not fun. I wanted to share this information. Chris Holcomb just gave me this graphic. He had just updated this, and this information just came in from the National Weather Service. Excuse me. In Jasper County earlier this week, we had those really bad storms, and a lot of people speculating it was a tornado in Jasper, and it turns out it was an EF0. Wind speeds at 80 miles per hour, and the path length was right here at 1.96 miles. So a low-end tornado, but nonetheless still a tornado. All right, taking you outdoors right now at 89 over some hazy skies in the downtown area. That's because of this Canadian smoke from the fires still with us for another couple days, and then I think by Sunday we'll start to really see it pull away, at least temporarily. The good news is it's not really causing any major air quality alerts. We're still in the good to moderate range for air quality, but it is creating some really pretty bright sunsets. So keep those pictures coming on in. I want to show you this picture. This is last night's moon, the buck moon it's called, and it typically takes on this orangish glow. The full moon here, the buck moon, named after a deer and the antlers that typically start growing this time of year. So pretty shot there from Alfred Gray. All right, temperatures are at 89 downtown, 84 in Gainesville, 87 in Dalton, 93 in Eatonton. Our feels like temperatures are really not much off from our air temperatures because our humidity is so much lower today. So overall, a really nice afternoon. Our average high is 90. We'll be right about at average throughout the metro. And then quiet for now on the satellite and radar. Not going to be seeing any action throughout the evening here. But we will see some changes coming in on Saturday. So this front is actually going to lift, and also a cold front moves in from the west. So what that does, it opens the door here for this humid tropical air to just funnel up from the south, and that is what will happen, triggering some showers and storms. So Saturday we'll start off with a few storms in northwest Georgia late Saturday morning, and then this model picking up on some pretty decent storms and heavy rainfall coming through the metro, maybe around 2-3 o'clock before everything pushes off to the south. And then on Sunday, we could see more of the same thing. We do have a moderate or a slight flood risk, that is, in yellow, and that does include all of us here in the viewing area. So those low-lying areas, we'll just have to watch out. Any of these tropical downpours, as you've probably gathered, they pack a lot of moisture. And if they slow down for any period of time, that's when we can get into some trouble. A low-level severe threat for northwest Georgia on Saturday. Sunday, it looks like we might have a marginal threat now. This is also newly updated for some stronger storms in the eastern half of our viewing area. Weekend outlook, though, 60% chance each day of showers and storms. Temperatures will remain in the 80s. And then for your 7-day forecast, it looks like we'll keep the 80s around through about Tuesday of next week. Then the 90s start to creep back in. But we return, Rebecca, to a more typical summer pattern starting off next week with a 30% chance or so of those afternoon pop-up showers and storms.
I like to always look at the silver linings, so maybe I'm not going to get to go tubing this weekend, but I also will not have to worry about watering my plants.
There you go. Yeah. We could
There
always
we go.
use more rain. Yeah, absolutely.
We'll take what we can get. Thank you.
Sure.
We want to shift now to a live look at the National Governors Association. This meeting is underway right now in Oklahoma City, and this is an opportunity for governors from across the country to get together, talk about the issues that are impacting their states and how they can work together to come up with brainstorm ideas that might help their individual communities. And they say that this meeting happening right now. The summit is really trying to focus on bipartisanship and putting dignity back in politics. And so with that, I think it is wonderful that kicking off this summit are some of the wives of governors. Sarah Stitt, the wife of Governor Ken Stitt in Oklahoma. Dawn Moore, the wife of Governor Wes Moore from Maryland. Anna Stein, the wife of Josh Stein in North Carolina. And Abby Cox, the wife of Governor Spencer Cox in Utah. And of course, again, reflecting on some of those governors, they're Republicans, some of them are Democrats. Let's listen in to what these wives are having to say.
It with everybody in the state. A little competition was good. I'm glad you went to the Kentucky Derby. And I think, and some of you have had, at least two of you, I think, have worked in your state government before, right, Mrs. Stein? You did, and Mrs. Moore, you did as well. So sort of taking that experience of working, knowing how to harness and use the resources of the state. And Ms. Stein, I would like to go back to you and ask you about the steps you're taking to help reduce the stigma that surrounds substance abuse and mental health issues to make the goal of making opportunity possible for more people.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, I do post about it on social media. I visit substance use treatment centers and try to lift up those centers that are doing a good job. I am exploring how we can improve treatment for mothers in ways that we can keep children with their mothers during treatment, how to improve relationships between people who are incarcerated and their children. So there's a lot of different avenues that I'm exploring to try to improve the experience of children whose parents are struggling with these various issues.
And what Ms. Stitt, if I can go back to you now, about what you were describing a little bit earlier about hope as being something very crucial before anyone could reach the point where they feel they have an opportunity. And you've taken that concept of actually, I'm sorry, this is for you, Mrs. The concept of care communities. What does that look like? And what are the, what's at stake for a kid in the foster system now to achieve the American dream?
Yeah, thank you, Anita. I do have to say, and shout out to my friend Sarah, we've talked a lot about this issue, and actually her work on hope, and I know she's going to talk about this, but it actually informs a lot of what I'm doing. And when we were in Oklahoma last year, visited one of the jails there, the women's prisons, and it was really impactful to me, and took it back to our corrections team and said a lot of the things they were doing, talking about what you're doing. So it really does tie into what I'm doing, the science of hope. We have a population in every one of our states that is those kids that are in care. So they're kids that have been removed from their homes because of abuse or neglect. Most of our states have a real issue with the number of foster families. There is a woeful shortage of foster families in the country, and we're no exception in Utah. And sadly, there comes a point with foster kids that sometimes they're being either left in abusive situations because there's not a family for them to go to, or they're spending nights in offices, state offices, because there's not a place for them to go. So it's a huge problem. And the reason that it's that all of us should be worried about this and concerned about this, and every one of us should think about this, is because they are the highest risk for all the social ills. So they're the ones that are going straight into jail. They're the ones that are going straight into homelessness. They're the ones that are suicidal, substance abuse. So it touches all of the aspects of the things that we're trying to address in our states. And so, and just specifically to Utah, there's only about 60% of our kids in care that graduate from high school. So it's our lowest demographic by far for high school graduation. So to me, as we thought about this, how do we address this? What's the issue? The issue is we need more families. The issue is that when we do have foster families that step up and get certified, get licensed, they only take 1 to 2 placements and then they get out. They give up their license. Number one reason why? Lack of support. So as we thought about this, we have great agencies in our state. We have great nonprofits that are working on this issue. But I thought, where could I uniquely fill a hole? And what we came up with is we saw pockets of this in the South and with different Christian churches, which is this idea of care communities, which is where you train and you trauma train these volunteers through the congregation to surround a foster family that's doing this work. And what we found is we ran a 2-year pilot through different congregations. We had a whole interfaith congregation organizations that were working on this. And we did a pilot where we started doing care communities around these families, and we found that we went from 73% feeling overwhelmed down to 27% feeling overwhelmed when they had a care community around them. So if you think about this family that can now stay in the work, keep doing it, and now you have 8 to 10 individuals that are trained, that understand the child welfare system, that understand trauma, and now they are trauma trained, so we have this whole army of trauma trained individuals, but now they're able to surround these families and keep them in the work. We are finding that once they get trained and once they're kind of understanding the issues, they're starting to become licensed foster families as well. So that's how we've kind of harnessed the power of like all the agencies, nonprofits, to tackle one of these biggest problems in our state.
That's an extraordinary accomplishment, and to bring more families into the system and to be mentors for other foster families. I wanted to ask you, Mrs. Moore, about.
And that was a bit of the live conversation taking place in Oklahoma City right now in the National Governors Association Summit. They're talking about, bipartisanship and bringing dignity back to politics. And so to kick off the summit, several of the wives of some governors throughout the state or throughout the country were kind of discussing how we do that and some of the issues that are facing our states right now, whether your state is led by a Republican governor or a Democratic governor. We all share some common needs and goals, and that's what the purpose of this summit is this weekend. Stay with us. We have a very important interview coming up after the break.
Today, Barrow County students went back to school, and this has been an emotional week for, I mean, a lot of students, a lot of parents, but especially those who attend Appalachia High School. And the Barrow County District Attorney Brad Smith spoke earlier about kind of the true crime community and their role in what we're experiencing at this time. Take a listen.
What I would like society to take away from this, and this was something that I didn't know existed, was this true crime community that's out there and the insidiousness of it. Whenever there's a mass shooting, I've noticed people are always wondering, well, do they vote for Trump or do they vote for Harris? Do they believe in this or do they believe in that? And that's us adults thinking, why would someone do this? But what I realized was with this true crime community, they don't have an ideology. They're not progressive. They're not conservative. They're just nihilistic. And they want to just cause harm and pain. And they revel in that. And so I want everyone to realize this is not harmless. The things they're doing online are not harmless. And we need to pay attention to when these kids start doodling these things on their notebooks and putting them on their backpacks and doing these things and putting pictures on their wall. Who is that person you just put on your wall? Why are they on your wall?
These comments coming after testimony that we heard for days, both in the sentencing of Colt Gray as well as his father, Colin Gray, and really addressing what did the parents know, what were Colt's motivations, all of that testimony leading into the sentencing. But how does all of that play out then for the teenagers, the students who have to return to these classrooms and reconcile all that they've heard all week, all that they have experienced? And for that, we want to turn to certified school psychologist, Dr. Rachel Sheenfield. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I guess the first question to throw out there is, when we think of healing, you know, I kind of put that in little air quotes, healing, what does healing really mean and look like after a tragedy like a school shooting?
Well, thank you for having me. And healing can take many different forms after such a tragedy occurs. And there's not a one-size-fits-all approach. I think a lot of what is going on right now is part of the healing process is trying to make meaning out of what happened. Look for answers, find information, look for ways to prevent such a tragedy from happening again, making sure that the mental health and emotional well-being of the community and the individual students continues to be a primary factor and is at a top priority right now.
As a parent, do you bring it up? I mean, I'm looking at the time. It's 3:22. Elementary schools are probably out at this point in time. High school's getting out. Middle school's going to be out in about an hour or so. When your kid walks in the door, do you say something or do you really let them lead the conversation?
I truly believe in full transparency, of course, in the most developmentally appropriate format and language. I think allowing the child to lead with information and questions and giving them honest answers is really creating that space where they feel safe and they feel that they can go to a trusted person, particularly if it's a caregiver or somebody at school, to be able to share any information. I don't think it's a negative either if parents introduce the topic to them, albeit in a gentle way and albeit in a very thoughtful way, particularly for kids who are at this age level that are very aware and can understand the tragedy that occurred, the impact that it has. And sometimes it can be something as simple as a check-in of like, how are you feeling about this? Do you feel like you have a support there? Do you feel like you know who to go to? Like on a larger level for the tragedy that occurred about those questions, but also moving forward of like, do you feel like you have somebody you can go to, or if you have a friend in need who you can reach out to if they need that level of support, especially if they're struggling emotionally.
I know after the Appalachia High School shooting, I spoke with my own teenage son, and his reaction was almost, well, that's something that happened somewhere else. That wouldn't happen at my school. We don't have students who would do something like that. As a parent, what do you do with that information? Because a part of me wants to be grateful that my child feels safe in his environment, and you don't want to burst that bubble. But at the same time, we know that this type of violence can happen anywhere.
It is. I think unfortunately, there is a level of numbness and a sense of invisibility that children feel now. And it is a very sad state that students are living in at this point in time, that they hear about countless numbers of tragedies, school shootings, and also feeling as if it won't happen to them. They feel so far removed from it. And I think that it's really important to talk about that they do live in a safe community, hopefully, and they have all the safety measures in place, and really just checking in with them to feel like, have you talked about what that looks like for your school? All the schools at this point in time are practicing lockdown drills, have all those different protocols in place so that in the event of something happening that is putting those students at risk, there is a procedure to follow. However, it isn't uncommon, unfortunately, at this point where a lot of teens, especially at this point, feel like it just can't happen to me. And we don't want to impose that level of fear in them, but we also want to balance that with some level of reality here. And so part of that is a reality check of, do you feel safe? Do you feel like you know what to do in those situations? If you see something, do you know to say something? The standard phrase that we typically hear, don't keep it inside. If a friend is saying something to you, you see something posted online, you feel like there's somebody that's in need of help or in danger, don't stay quiet.
Leading into this discussion, we heard that sound from District Attorney Brad Smith, and one of his thoughts was really, it seems, to parents to understand what your children are engaging in. What is that poster that's on the wall? What is that shooting, perhaps, that they are Google searching and trying to learn more about, and why? What's the motivation behind that? How do you kind of get that sense over to parents to be active in paying attention to what their children are learning and filling their heads with?
I think it's really important for parents to have a pulse on what their children are involved with. So I think because social media has such a high level of prevalence now, to be really cautious of what's being posted on social media platforms, who the children are friends with, who they are following. Are they sharing personal information? Are they sharing detailed information about themselves? Do they have other accounts? That's not uncommon. They have a main account and they have some additional accounts that sometimes parents aren't aware of. Are there other signals or signs that the child is exhibiting that parents should have their eyes and ears open, whether that be a poster on the wall or seems to be a fixation with certain types of profiles, or let's say media, or they're watching certain kinds of shows or movies. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're in danger, but we really at this point in time have to pay attention to all the signs. In addition to, are there behavioral changes as well? Are they pulling back? Are they more withdrawn? Are they increasingly irritable? Are they showing some other signs related to their overall emotional well-being that's in conjunction with some of these other fixations or focus that could be a real signal for a call for help?
I know sometimes parents talk with their teens, even if they do need to have that conversation. What you get in exchange is, sort of an eye roll. And some teens really do seem to be able to go with take all of this in stride and with a healthy perspective. Then there are the parents who drop their kids off, and it's the parents who have that just feeling of anxiety every time they have to drop their kids off at school. How do parents deal with their own anxiety without passing that on to their children?
I think it's a real fear nowadays, I think, for parents, is to really wonder at this point in time, like, is my child safe? When I drop them off at school and they walk through those doors, are they going to be safe throughout that day? And it is a horrible feeling to have for parents of that unknown. And at the same time, trusting that there are all the measures in place, hopefully for the school and within the community, to keep those children safe. Unfortunately, there's no guarantees, and we don't have control over all the various factors that can go into these situations. However, I think it's really important for parents also to band together so that they, as a community, can ensure that their schools are taking all the safety measures possible, that if they have feedback to share with the schools, that they're able to do so, that they're part of a parent organization, whether it's the PTA association that can bring information back. I think it's really important. Parents don't have to operate in isolation. This is a common source of anxiety for so many parents nowadays. I think there's a part of it that we do have to normalize, that it is okay to be very scared. And we also have to trust that there's measures in place. And if there seems to be any gaps in safety measures that parents are noticing, I think it's really important to bring those up to the school, to the administration, and also talk alongside with other parents, because I think that's how true action happens.
In closing, what do you hope is the real message that the Barrow County community takes away as they launch into a new school year and just kind of deal with all that has happened in the past 2 years?
I think that's an excellent question. I think because of what they've gone through and the impact that it has on a community with all that's gone on and the multi-layers that go into this whole entire situation, I hope that they can find a renewed sense of hope for the upcoming school year. It's not about forgetting. It's not about the fact that this won't have a continuous impact on the community, but hopefully to know moving forward that they are a strong community, and hopefully this is another indication that if there are any signs or signals that are indicating that a child is in distress, a child is showing any type of behavior at school, or people hear about it in the community, that they will do something about it, that they will say something, they will involve the appropriate authority figures, school administration, that it's not a wait and see approach. It's really about let's be proactive, and let's make sure that we're doing everything we can for the students' safety, and just so that we can continue to move forward while also ensuring that we can protect these children from any future harm.
Dr. Rachel Sheenfield, thank you so much for spending some time with us on this Friday afternoon and sharing with us just those words of wisdom. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And certainly to all of those who have returned to school in Barrow County, hearts and prayers with you. The community loves you and is behind you. Stay with us. We'll be back after the break. We want to take you back out live now to the National Governors Association. Earlier this afternoon, we were listening to some of the wives talk about the needs within their community and how we add some civility back into politics. But now they're shifting gears, and Dr. Mehmet Oz, the administrator of the U.S. Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, is talking with these governors about, how the administration can help with some of the needs that they are facing in their community. Let's listen in.
This is not part of Rural Health Transformation Fund money, but we do have Indian Health Service. We're working together with the Chickasaw here, which I've been doing for 15 years personally, with the Kids Foundation we have that just happened to really sync up well with Oklahoma. But the reason my shoes are dusty like this, I left it dirty because while you guys were having lunch, I was shoveling dirt at the groundbreaking at Newcastle, Governor. And they will be probably the largest Indian lands healthcare facility in the country. And we want people thinking there's a future out there, getting excited about it. And the fact that Congress thought this was wise enough to do it and then give it away immediately, I think is a real testimony to the power governors have in this country.
You talked about some of the innovative ways that states are implementing these funds, and we have a lineup and a list of things to get our dollars rolled out this fall. Ambulance services, service line expansions, AI work that we're doing. This money's got to go out quickly. Given this timeline that is so not at the pace of government, which we like, how are we, and what is your advice to governors and to our teams, our Medicaid teams, on how to be good stewards, how to actually get this out, how not to have clawbacks, how to eliminate the problems that may come with there's a good thing to getting the money out really quick, but then there's challenges there. So how do we best eliminate those obstacles?
Well, first, I think we need to really focus on the good that we're doing. This is $50 billion over 5 years, which represents 50% more funding to rural areas than we've ever had. So let's acknowledge that first. And then I think one of the great things you can do, and we've actually heard from governors here today already, is working with partner states that have very similar geographies. I think we've already heard of some really interesting partnerships that they're leveraging how they're hiring to ensure that they're hiring across multiple states and not stealing each other's workforce. So ensuring you're able to keep the workforce, make sure you're not getting dinged on your audits in the end. You're talking to people, you're collaborating, and that only makes the program better. It makes it last longer, and it make sure you're not getting audited all the time.
And Governor Lee, because I know you're good at this, I'm sure all the governors here are, is it really a flaw or a feature you just identified that we can claw the money back? Yeah. See, I think it's a feature. Why? Because you have an excuse now to blame me or the federal government, because if they don't deliver, if your insurance commissioner doesn't give a right for physicians and nurses to practice across state lines, if the pharmacists can't function at the height of their licensure, and we have doctor groups like my brethren blocking those things, you can go in there and say, guys, you're throwing away $200 million a year per year for 5 years.
Yep.
We're not going to let that happen. And all of a sudden, it starts to make you a bit more influential in the decision process. So we actually thought it was a good thing.
I actually think you're right. We don't want to have to give any of that money back. It helps, I will say it helped in our situation with our legislature and the process that we put in place to get these dollars out. That can become contentious and bogged down, and everyone has ideas about how it should happen. But if you're at risk of losing it if you don't get it done in the right time frame, then it's helpful to us. One last thing about this, and we'll change subjects. Best practices. We talked a little bit about that this morning. I get ideas from what Wes Moore is doing, or Governor Polis, or Governor Stitt, or we get ideas as we see a program they have. We were talking this morning about benefits cliffs, and we have a pilot program in our state to kind of address that issue. But how what is your thoughts over the next several years about sharing these practices? If you do find one of these things you've talked about that Alaska is doing or Alabama's doing, or how are we going to hear about that? How are our teams going to know about that so that we can begin to implement these best practices all over the country?
Yeah, so we have an office, that's all they do, is go and visit the states, develop personal relationships. They have continuous ongoing dialogue with the leaders in your states of this money. Obviously, $50 billion is a lot of cash. We want to make sure it's spent appropriately, but we actually know states are going to try to do the right thing. We just want to avoid the footfalls. But you asked a related question about the cliffs and other problems that might happen, because here's the basic thought. You want to move people who are living perhaps in poverty or in vulnerable situations and move them into more prosperity. So whether it's Medicaid moving into the ACA, the commercial markets, or allowing states to be able to take care of natural barriers, rural parts of the country just don't have access to care. And so without the technologies that are currently available in larger scale academic institutions, they fall further and further behind. So they should be using group purchasing power that the larger centers have. Share them. Electronic medical records, they should be shared. Access to information, grand rounds, cancer care. But here's the reality. Why does a hospital shut down? A hospital shuts down because no one from the community that it's in goes to it anymore. They've lost confidence in the hospital. So the most expensive thing, in fact, I was going to leave you with just 2 bits of information. The most expensive thing in healthcare is bad quality care. Because you're paying someone to do a bad job, then you pay someone who's capable to fix the problem, and you got to pay downstream problems. And the other reality, and this is critical, is the value of us getting this right is measured in trillions of dollars of GDP productivity. America does best when it is working, and that's not just tax codes and permits, it's also a healthy workforce that can show up for work. Dan, since you're brilliant at this, could you help? And Tennessee in particular has a good example of this, an idea, an example. So it goes beyond the working families tax credit legislation. It's other things that states are doing. We should be sharing. And when we get to fraud, we'll talk about that in a very big way. Because you guys have no idea, you generally, and nor could you, of how much of a problem you have in autism or hospice or home health care. We know. If I could tell you that, Wes is knocking it out of the park on hospice, but you got him on autism, you guys would talk with each other. But what about the cliff issue in Tennessee?
Yeah, so that's one of the great examples. How do you shepherd someone and subsidize people from Medicaid and into the exchange, or even in other insurances? And this is really goes to one of our 3 big pillars, which is aligning spending and value. How do we get the value for the $1 trillion we're spending in Medicaid? Streamline the programs, design, and operations. I want to touch on that on fraud when we get to that. And then really improving paths to prosperity. And our goal around work requirements, which we'll talk about, is really improving economic mobility. That is our goal. It's not about meeting compliance. Those are technological issues. We talked about some of that this morning, and how do we automate as much of the process as we can. But this is our opportunity to open our systems, work across agencies, and actually support people's improvement in their income, in their community supports, that they can be better off for the long term, right? Medicaid is supposed to be the payer of last resort. People have been saying on for longer, we understand. But at the same time, people are sitting on that benefits cliff. If you make $5 more because you got a raise, it is not worth it for you to take that raise. You're gonna stay on your benefits. You lose a very good benefit package. You might be on SNAP, you might be on TANF all at the same time. You don't wanna lose those. I would not make that decision. So really, this brings work and health together. But to do that, we have a position in Medicaid to be able to bring the technology, to bring our power to convene, to bring these agencies together, to bring DOL and Medicaid together. And ultimately, that is our goal. I want to look back on how we implemented this and help give the tools to the states, the technology to the states, the power to bring interoperability that we very much need. A lot of this is technology, and a lot of it is trust.
We are going to cut out of that conversation for just a moment to go live to President Trump, who is in New Jersey right now. We were hoping that he might take a few moments to talk with reporters. We've been telling you this afternoon about kind of the back and forth that's been going on with discussions in Iran, back and forth with the nominee that he has for Attorney General. He did not actually take any time to talk with reporters. So we're going to go back now to the Governors Association, where they are talking about Medicare and Medicaid. And if you think about it, how many people within our community are actually touched by one of these programs? It really is one of the largest insurers. And so let's hear what they have to say to these governors.
Hold us accountable, but we are open for business and communication. So I just want everyone to know that from a state perspective, because that is critical to getting work done. If we don't know your problems, well, let's get to fraud, then it becomes a problem. If we know your problems, I will work with you, and we will take care of it.
We have worked with you all on this Pathway to Independence pilot that we're implementing. We studied our Medicaid population, and this is just an example of working together with you to try to find a solution. First of all, we have a very innovative waiver that we are very excited about. We're now into its fifth year, and it is a waiver that has allowed us to, if we can control costs and bring savings to to the federal government for what we might have spent otherwise, we get to share in those savings. It allows us to then take those savings, and by the way, for our state, it's been hundreds of millions of dollars, and invest those in our Medicaid population, which will provide even better outcomes and even lower costs. And it's a cycle that works, and it's working in our state. We're really excited about it. We've been able to invest in programs like Pathway to Independence, which allowed us to study our population, look at our greatest users, and see where the benefits cliff impacts them the most. Parent caregivers, parents of children who are recipients of Medicaid, as they approach the Medicaid benefits cliff, we provide assistance with premium payments through this $150 million that we invested in our Pathway to Independence program, so that people are not disincentivized to take that next pay level. We want to help them move, so they're not facing a cliff, they're facing a transition period. We provide assistance with benefits to get them to the next step over a period of time where they can access private insurance and not take a penalty for taking that for that better job or that higher pay. And we're very excited about the prospects there. People will not return to Medicaid if they do get into that higher income bracket, and they'll be incentivized to continue to, and it's dignity for their family, it's economic mobility. So we appreciate that, and we think that's an example of shared practices that states can use going forward. Let's shift and talk a little bit about fraud, waste, and abuse. I'll just leave it at that.
COVID taught a lot of people that you could steal from the federal government, all government, and you probably wouldn't have to pay much of a price. Now, we've had fraud in the systems, obviously, before that, but it was a rounding error compared to what we're experiencing now. And I just want to put it out there, we have multinational criminal organizations involved. We believe there are foreign governments involved. We're a massive piggy bank. $2 trillion comes out of our agency. All you need to do to pierce us is have a Medicare beneficiary number, which, by the way, we think 3 to 4 million have been compromised. Think about these numbers. 170 million people covered. They have numbers in different ways. They're like credit cards. If you're a Medicare beneficiary and you write your number down on a chart and someone takes that number and puts it online, it's gone. It's in China or Kazakhstan or someplace, and we're getting hacked. And these are becoming more problematic at a level that we think is about $100 billion a year just for our agency. Now, most fraud in government is healthcare fraud because of the multiple different ways that you can pierce our armor. There's lots of arrows in your quiver, that you can launch at us and penetrate. We are doing a lot of things to address them, but it has to be an all-of-government approach. When the president appointed the vice president during the State of the Nation address in February to run the White House Anti-Fraud Task Force, he wasn't just talking about me being able to call Scott Bessent to get forensic accounting on some shenanigans that's happening in Flushing, Queens, nor was he talking about just calling Todd Blanche or Kash Patel about a law enforcement issue. He was saying you have to call governors, the people who really have a lot on the hook as well, and make sure that they're actually able to see the problems. And we have now gone after 5 states, red and blue, with questionnaires and more detailed examinations of finances where we see an aberrancy. A state spending, California is a good example, spends twice as much in its growth on personal care services than the national average, than other states.
You've been listening to a live conversation taking place in Oklahoma City right now at the National Governors Association. That was Dr. Oz, the head of Medicare and Medicaid, talking in a room full of governors and their associates as they sort of try to grapple with challenges that each of those communities are dealing with. And this was their chance to hear and ask some questions directly of the administration. I looked it up. About 40% of the U.S. population is covered by either Medicare or Medicaid. So when you think of that discussion around fraud, certainly if there are some issues going on within the systems, that could easily add up to millions and even billions of dollars. Stay with us. All right, we're going to shift gears, talk about the Odyssey. There's a lot of confusion, I would say, even amongst myself, over just where can you go to see this movie as Christopher Nolan intended. Some things are labeled IMAX, but we're talking about the real 70 millimeter screen, like big, huge. Well, there's only two places I'm being told. That's the Regal Mall of Georgia in Gwinnett County. And then there's another. The Tennessee Aquarium has an IMAX movie theater in Chattanooga. So depending on where you live and what might actually be closer, they rolled out the old film projector for the first time in 10 years in order to show Christopher Nolan's Odyssey. It is a movie that a lot of people are just really eager to see, especially in this form. And Mary Grace Copeland takes us behind the scenes to see how they're doing it.
This is the Odyssey shot on 70 millimeter film, and this is the IMAX projector that it's being fed through in order for you to see it. The Tennessee Aquarium IMAX Theater is only one of 25 in the entire country for you to see a film like this.
While you're watching a movie on the big screen, this is what it sounds like behind the scenes. That's the sound of 70 millimeter film going through the IMAX projector. The film system was installed in 1996 and ran film until 2016.
In 2016, I was pretty instrumental in finding a new system because at that time everything was really moving away from film, and at that time we were strictly documentaries.
The theater was looking for a digital format to show films, and in 2016 installed the IMAX dual laser system. The film projector was pulled out of commission, but in 2023, Oppenheimer was released and film movies spiked in popularity. However, the theater's film projector stayed in retirement.
At that time, I just didn't think it made a lot of sense because one thing about these systems, they're both capable of the 1:4:3 aspect ratio. So we're actually 1 in 5 theaters who can fill the screen with digital and film.
Corey Cobb is the director of IMAX operations at the Tennessee Aquarium IMAX Theater, and he knew the Odyssey was going to be shot entirely in 70 millimeter. So they reapproached the idea and brought the film projector back into action.
Every show so far, first show was July 16th, and every show has been sold out since.
The length of the film is 11 miles long. That's the same distance from Red Bank to Rock City, and it weighs about 600 pounds. That's heavier than an average grizzly bear. It arrives in shipments. Cobb and his team have to splice the film together so the transitions move seamlessly through the projector. This process takes around 6 hours. Once everything is set up, Cobb lines up the film at the front of the projector, ready to play the movie.
It takes 8 seconds to get up to full speed. There's 24 frames a second coming through the aperture.
The Tennessee Aquarium IMAX Theater is only one of 25 theaters in the country and only one of 40 theaters in the world that can show IMAX 70 millimeter film. And so far, people from 39 different states have traveled to Chattanooga to see it.
I kind of wonder if it was almost intentional because we're going to watch their Odyssey, but some people have to kind of go on their own Odyssey to get to the theater a little bit.
I wanted to see it as Nolan intended, 70 millimeter IMAX film.
A film this unique brings people from miles away to Chattanooga for the viewing experience of a lifetime.
And to put it into perspective, this is just one piece of 11 miles worth of film in Chattanooga. I'm Mary Grace Copeland, Local 3 News.
All right, you're curious, you want to go see it? I just looked online, and the first ticket that you can get in Chattanooga is August 7th. So maybe something to plan ahead for. I know some people buying tickets at 3 o'clock in the morning in order to see it locally. But what that really cleared up for me is it's not just about how big the screen is, but also the projector that it is playing on, if you really want to see it as he intended. Have a great weekend. Thanks for being with us this afternoon.